What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Rollin' in My 5.0 podcast, featuring yours truly, the infamous project, and the one and only KASL Customs. So, we are on all of the social media platforms now, guys and girls. We are on the Instagram and Facebook. We are even going to start uploading to YouTube. So pick your poison in terms of where you want to follow us. We got some short little snippets that are going to be coming into the mix. And guys, if you are enjoying this podcast or you find it useful, make sure you comment, make sure you like, make sure you share, and do all of those wonderful things. So on this pod, it is in fact just me and Gary. I talk a little bit about my little impromptu trip to Florida to help out my buddy Lewis get his Cobra right in time for P.I.T.S. Moreover, Gary's talking about his car, and well, I think he's more ready than anybody because my struggle is real trying to get the yellow Dutch together and beat the timeline and deal with logistics and everything else. So we'll see if I make it there and if the yellow car, in fact, makes it there as well. So, other than that, Gary talks about a little bit of a science fair experiment that he does with this AC vintage air setup because he is now officially blowing cold in the Green Dragon. And, well, we get into just an array of conversation, including suspension stuff and crazy R&D, air strut, airbag combinations, all this types of crazy stuff. And then, of course, we get a little political. We want to apologize for all the idiot Canadians who decided that booing at a hockey game during the American national anthem was a good idea. But moreover, we talk a little bit about Canada needing to clean up its own backyard. And, well, you know how it goes. Couple beers, couple drinks, whatever it is, some conversation. And, well, the podcast gets deep. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Stay tuned. And always, thanks for listening.
Okay, how you doing, pal?
Oh, trying to get shit done.
Yeah, a long time no see.
I know, right? It does feel like forever because we recorded really early. Well, I guess whatever. It's a week and a day. I think we did it Tuesday last week. No,
Yeah,
wait. That was like 2 weeks ago because you had Bill on. So it is a long time.
yeah, shorter than normal because we did an early recording, but longer than normal because you weren't here last week.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys were talking shit about me while I was in flight in the air. Couldn't even defend myself.
No, I I introduced you very nicely. I'm like, listen, don't feel sorry for the fucking guy. He's going down to the Sunshine State,
Yeah. Well,
right?
I tried actually. I tuned in right at the beginning because we were in like we were waiting for boarding, which the plane was running late. So I actually did catch the intro,
Mm,
but then I had to board and yeah. But it was good. I listened to it because obviously by the time you posted it up, I listened to it on my way home and got to
right.
hear all these crazy little intricacies of the 79. Like even just the stupid the window trim on the back. Never would have
It
guessed that shit. You know what I mean? Like just so random.
it's wild. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like Bill and I talked for a little bit after we stopped the live, and we both said like it's one of those things that if you're, just maybe new to Fox bodies or something, like it's probably not really information that you would find interesting. But like if you're one of us that feels like, you've maybe seen 99% of what you can see, and like you probably know a lot about a little, and whatever. And then you get somebody like Bill on that just has this fucking extra deep, like Grand Canyon style knowledge of these cars. And you go, whoa, little stuff. Like, I don't know if you caught when he was talking about the silly little flap in like A pillar to like top of
Oh yeah.
door.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I
I'm
remember
like,
actually him talking to us about that before, um, about that one, and I was like, took me a minute, and I forget if we Googled it or looked it up, and like, sure as shit, it's like, yep, that flap actually made sense.
it does. Yeah, because it is kind of like a flap that is naturally out, right? So it like kind of seals when you close the door. Um, Yeah. It's a great idea, you know? And they still do have, like, door rubbers and everything in them too, so this is just like it's like double wrapping it, right? When you just met some rando girl.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
No, it was a fun
I'm looking
chat. A
in the
lot of like
background here. You got antlers on your convertible.
yeah. Actually, okay, yeah, I'll explain that first, and then I got a funny story about this. Um, I do. It's, well, actually, like, yeah, like my hunting pack and then fucking antlers, and because they were all stacked on shit on the other side of the car, and a lot of that got shifted around this morning, so I forgot about that. That's good footage for background, eh? Um,
Oh,
but on this note, so me, like you, and I think like everybody, like we're extra conscious of other people's cars, and you would never imagine doing anything to someone else's car that you wouldn't do to your own. And we're all fairly particular when it comes to our own. So that means, you're really going to never find yourself in a scenario where it's like, hey, buddy, like, what are you doing to my car? You know what I mean? Because we're just so extra cautious. Well, anyway, when I was at Matthews doing the dyno day, he's got uh it's like the first couple years of the Coyote. What is that? 13 or something? 14, 12, 13,
11,
14?
11 to be the first year, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Nice little car outside of like just seeing the like, that it's got a nice set of tires on it, and or maybe when you hear him rev it up and you can hear the twin screw on it. Other than that, it just looks like a bone stock, super clean convertible red, Mustang. Well, anyway, I was kind of using the convertible top to just not like throw shit on, but I had like a tripod, like GoPro tripod set there, not standing, like just kind of leaned on it because again,
That
like I
that's
don't
what
know, I
you
look
do
at
at home. Dude, I got
well,
6 center caps sitting on my canvas top right now. Like, I have my
yeah,
laptop on there. It's a nice little it's like a nice padded surface, like on a chair.
I couldn't agree more, right?
Yeah.
Like that is how I look at convertible tops. I'm like, I would never imagine doing that to a painted roof. Not in a trillion fucking years.
Aw,
But
Matthew scold you or what?
well, it was funny because he just kind of said it in passing to me. Is like, yeah, and if you want to get that shit off the roof of my car, and I was kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, do. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh fuck, like that wasn't a joke. Like he really means get that shit off there. And again, just to sort of paint the picture even wider here, like if I had a 45-pound weight or, like if I was going to damage the roof or even, stretch it or something, okay. But again, just in my perception, I'm like, what's the fucking big deal to have couple ounce tripod leaned
Yeah.
over on its side on the roof? It'd be like, putting 3 Bic pens. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
nothing serious.
Wow.
Anyway, I knew you'd appreciate that because I've seen your vert, and I mean, yeah, it's a great storage shelf, right?
No, it is, especially the canvas, nice and soft, like, it's, like, extra good because the vinyl, you gotta be careful because sometimes slippery and shit'll slide off on you, but, like, the
Yeah,
canvas is nice. Yeah, no, I use it
yeah,
all the time to put shit on.
yeah. Now, if the backpack wasn't between the roof and the antlers, I don't think I'd just set the antlers up there. That'd probably be a little too far, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know, backpack and a couple racks of deer antlers, no big deal.
Yeah. Very
She's
Canadian
a
of you.
workhorse.
Yeah.
Working man's car, you know? Okay, so tell me about the trip. I've seen
You
a
know
couple pictures, but as we both know, Lewis is the shit at posting anything, right?
No, he is. Honestly, man, the trip, it was like one of those um, perfect little holidays. Like the initial flight was delayed, which kind of sucked. But the important thing is like we knew we were gonna get in. It's supposed to be like 9 p.m. We got in at like 11. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So it was sort of we knew we were gonna get there and we weren't gonna have much time no matter how you looked at it. But the important thing was we got there Thursday night and it was just it was like short and sweet. Managed to actually go and well, you met Jake and Amanda and Kyle and Tina and that whole crew in Canada for the Canada Day party that they had. So they had this like, dude, I think it was like 11 beds, 13 baths, and
Oh,
like a bowling alley, like fucking arcade games, like the basketball games. There was a room with a fucking trampoline with a fucking basketball net in it,
indoor,
pool, cornhole. What's that?
indoors.
All indoors. Like this is like whatever, like a big just outside of Kissimmee, right? So like pure tourist rental, whatever. But this place is huge. Now, like they were a big group. Like it was pretty much what you saw on Canada Day there, plus maybe a couple more. So yeah, we went out. Well, Friday actually, Jake came over in the morning and helped me started prepping out the door moldings, which is aftermarket moldings are a pain in the dick because you're still pulling the cheap China adhesive off and the metal strip out so you can actually because they come wavy as fuck right out of the box.
Mhm,
Um, so yeah, prep those out, went and hung out with them. Um, and then Saturday was like a paint and clear day, and Laura's brother came over and barbecued up some Argentinian steak, and man, he made like these forget what kind of cheese it is, but it's like cheese with olive oil and herbs, kind of like baked on the
ooh,
barbecue with some tomato on top, and it's just holy fuck. I'm like, I could just eat that all day. Um,
no doubt.
so yeah, no, just kind of messed around. Me and Lewis took the coop out for a drive on the Sunday, and yeah, went to like this little like tiki restaurant thing, and didn't install anything back on the car because we were waiting. I wanted him to get number one, the right type of tape, and number two, like the adhesion promoter, because it does make a huge difference in terms of that two-way tape sticking. So then he was contemplating um, getting PPF done on the front bumper to avoid stone chips from happening. So um, yeah, either way, we got the job done. The clear laid down fucking awesome, which was great. And yeah, hopefully he's good to go for Ponies. I feel like everybody's way more ready than I am. Although I did get some good hours in on the yellow car today.
Oh, good. Okay, well, now did you guys same program, like, just in Lewis's garage?
Actually, just right in the wide open outdoors, man. We were
Nice.
a little concerned. It was a little chilly. It was like down in the 40s, I think, when we got up, and I think it was a high of 68 or 69. And we got the old pyrometer out because shit's sitting out in the sun. The sun's gonna and like honestly, the moldings were like 85 in the direct sunlight. So it was like this is perfect. Um, did see mixing up the base coat and everything, and then I go to start mixing some clear, and the activator for the clear had hardened in the can. And
Oh,
of
fuck.
course, we're Sunday, so no paint shops open on a Sunday. And I look at the activator for the primer, and of course, two different brands, and you do the research, and everyone's like, no, you can't mix them, blah, blah, blah. And then another guy's like, well, I accidentally did it once because all the cans look the fucking same, and I didn't have an issue. And I've had some friends that paint and have mixed various products, and I was just like, whatever. I'm like, the worst case scenario is gonna have to scuff down and repeat the process. But yeah, the activator worked great. Had one like little hair we had to fish out with the tweezers, but otherwise, man, no, it laid great. Like none of that shit even needs a buff, if you ask me.
Hmm, nice. I find it kind of funny that he's considering wrapping that front nose cone, and now I get it, right? I probably would be thinking the same, but, like, when this was the guy that started out going like, "No, no, no, driver car," right? Like, this is rattle can plus, you know?
Yeah.
And now he's going, "Okay, this is turning out pretty good, like, let's wrap this bitch."
Well, he had a good amount of stone chips just from the drive to Foxtoberfest and back, right? So he was like, "Oh, let's just, yeah, we'll just clear over it." And I'm like, "Dude, like you can see this. It's like primer underneath. You know what I mean? So it's like, let's just scuff these down and blow them all in, and you know what I mean, just kind of give it a dusting. We'll re-clear the whole bumper, and away you go. But again, and I know we've talked about this before, like the clears just aren't like they were before. You know what I mean? I feel
Mm.
like stuff is just, it's more fragile and way more prone to stone chips and everything else. And you know, I told him even like my strawberry car, it's littered in stone chips in the front. And you know, you look at something like the yellow car, and there's hardly a fucking stone chip on it.
Yeah, like stone chips and actually windshields are a funny thing for me. Now I should knock on wood because I'm gonna say something about myself, and this will probably like jinx me from now on, right? But like I haven't. Okay, well, let's put it this way. I had a 2009 GMC Sierra pickup that I bought brand new and sold like 2 years ago, maybe. Okay. That truck still had the original windshield in it. I had like one hit that I had somebody throw the juice to and fill, but like original fucking windshield. And like every spring, I would clean that truck up. I would actually go to like really ridiculous lengths to clean it up. But, um, like, and as you're doing that, you're kind of like 2 inches away from the front end and like checking shit out and whatever. And it was a white truck too. So it needed a clay bar every year to get rid of those little rust stains. Right. And I'm like, I'd maybe touch up 2 spots, let's say. And now I'm not one of these guys that drives 2 miles behind the person in front of me either. But however my like subconscious tells me to keep distance from a car must be the perfect length. And I'm
Right.
not trying to sound like a dickhead here, but like stone chips are just not a fucking thing that I think a lot about. And that's probably surprising to a lot of people knowing where I live. Cause like they throw like 3/4 inch fucking gravel on our roads in the winter, right? And without a sweep, the roads may as well just be gravel. Then they sweep them, and I drive these fucking cars and whatever, and I don't have a problem. Even with the pickup that I drive all winter long, no issue. And
Hmm.
so, and then I hear something like this, right? Like, so Lewis, Florida, me being a Canadian guy, and I'm going like, I can't even imagine thinking that I needed to wrap a car or do any sort of protection because the only fucking stones that are going to be on that road rattled off of somebody's bumper, maybe because they pulled in onto the road off or onto the highway off a gravel road.
Yeah. No, I don't know, man. I feel like I've always gotten stone chips, or I don't know. Um, I ride pretty close to people. Like I know that because usually everything that I have has fairly good brakes, and I like to take advantage of good brakes. So maybe that's part of it. Windshields I've always done really good with as well. Again, knock on wood. Except for
Mhm.
the other day, dude. Like I was, out of all things, usually there's a lot of construction. Excuse me, construction going on around here, and avoiding the cement trucks and all that shit that are constantly going. Of all things, like a little Volkswagen crossover thing throws a fucking massive rock out of nowhere, and like probably like a good nickel size, on the M5 the other day, and I was like, Jesus
Oh,
fuck. I'm hoping they can feed the juice to it, but like there's this tiny little one too that's actually on the driver's side. It was there when I got the car, and it's like in the line of sight, and it's like just once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it's so annoying.
mm,
So whatever, I'm gonna have to check my glass policy out, and if they can't fix them, then just get a new one in there.
yeah. Yeah, because like the windshield that I put in my coupe, um, the windshield that was in it, I think I may have got like one chip that got filled. But that windshield got put in that car in like 98.
Yeah,
Hadn't had a windshield in it since up until 25, fucking 27 years.
that's impressive. Yeah, like, strawberry car is the original car light, and
Really?
let me tell you, you driving into the sunset, You
Yeah.
almost want to stick your head outside the fucking window because she's blasted.
No shit, hey?
Yeah.
Um, hey, so bit of a shameless plug here, but I think you get a kick out of this story, especially considering that we're recording this now. Video will come out before this pod releases, right? But uh I don't know. Did I tell you about this kind of haywire idea I had about testing air conditioning, like stock versus vintage?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, it was one of those like, every once in a while you have a creative moment. You're like, oh, like I might be onto something here, right? So I think I've even got it here. Yeah, I do. So I'm like, okay, what's the best way that I can portray to someone without having like their ass in the seat with me, how hard this thing blows and or how cold it blows, of which I don't know how cold that is either, right? But I can tell that there's like a stiffer wind that comes from the vintage air fan, right? So anyway, I do a quick Google search, and as it turns out, Amazon sells these fucking wind speed slash like wind chill uh anemometer, right?
Oh, so you spin
And
the old fan.
yeah, and like in true Amazon form, it's like, here's the best seller, and I'm like, $40, Jesus Christ, like I'm gonna use this thing once, right? Scroll a couple pages. I'm like, ooh, 16.99. Right. Buy it. Get it here tomorrow. So I get myself all set up, kind of introduced the video, and I was doing this all at the house and the vert's here. So I'm like, okay, it's going to be the OEM Ford up first, right? Anyway, and then I got real scientific with it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to set a timer. Each car will have 60 seconds to warm up, and then it's max AC, max fan. Let's see how they do, right? And go at the center, whatever, two vents. So anyway, the vert comes in at like 12 and a half mile an hour wind speed. And then I found out that, well, whatever, right, as the refrigeration process does what it needs to do, the temp's going to drop, right? So I ultimately ended up giving each car about 5 minutes of like test time because they just kept getting colder. But anyway, I gave up on this thing at like 48 degrees Fahrenheit. And I was like, okay, we're going to fucking burn the house down if I go any further. Enough's enough. 48 degrees is as cold as this thing wants to get. And at the same time, knowing full well that like the YouTubers are going to, not YouTubers, but like the folks in the comments are really going to fucking eat me alive if I don't like preface this and say, look, I know that we're comparing a brand new aftermarket kit to a fucking stock kit, but this is, I think, what most people are probably dealing with, right? Unless you're like, mad at Fox Resto and you've rebuilt your fucking HVAC system, you know?
So is your vert on R12 or converted to 134?
It's converted.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, then down to the shop. Oh, and all of this is happening in, I even said this in the video too. I'm like, controlled environment, 72-degree, like comfy garage temps. Okay. Down to the shop. Get my car back down off the hoist and kind of half out the door, and we get going on it. Well, anyway, 5 minutes in, guy, I'm down to fucking 34 degrees Fahrenheit. That fuck coming off that vent. I'm like, I can't hold the fucking deal anymore. Like my hands shaking. I'm
Right.
freezing. And then fan speed, I got up to like 14 and a half, little bit harder breeze than what this thing was. But it was the
Right.
cold that fucking rocked me.
Huh. Well, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I'd be curious to know if, because I feel there's an ideal amount of pressure, right, when it comes to your coolant or freon or refrigerant that's in the system so that it can like work in an optimal condition, and like overcharge can result in not cooling enough, and then obviously undercharging cannot cool as much as well. And I feel like every fox cools different, and a lot of it usually does come down to that. Because if
Right.
I understand right, I think it's something like, right, your R12, I think it calls for 2.2 pounds. And they say that if you go to 134, you do about 80%. And then, I've heard, which is probably around 1.8, 1.7, something like that. I've heard guys saying only run 1.5 for it to be optimal. So, yeah, I'm curious. Maybe get like a
This
couple
was
more cars or like create a little online, challenge or something.
well, yeah. So the coupe took, and this was as per Vintage Air's recommendation, 1.8. And I did put a post out on Facebook, of which Sam Ferentz reached out, that used to be at Fox Resto there, and he's like, "Hey, I just rebuilt my whole HVAC system and I'm coming to P.I.T.S. Bring that fucking meter." So anyway, I'll throw it in, and I'm like, at the end of my video, I'm like, "Listen, for all the fucking haters out there that are going to eat me alive on this, we in a month's time will have a freshly rebuilt, maybe you'll consider that to be a fairer
Yeah,
comparison, right?"
actually, that was the other thing too. A factory condenser is almost like a two row versus the aftermarket ones are like a single row. So I'm assuming there's some capacity differences that are going through that, which
Mm.
probably, I mean, if you're going just with a factory, you still have the factory condenser, you run like 1.8 ish. And probably if you go with the aftermarket one, that I'm sure it's probably cutting things down. And that's why maybe people end up with an overcharge system as a result. But
Well, I got thinking about this afterwards because so AC is one of those things, and I actually asked the guy that charged my car up. I said, "Hey, like, because he does residential, commercial, all that stuff by the day, and then he'll do cars, classic cars, and stuff at night." And I'm like, "Is there any like real significant difference between like a car's AC system and say a refrigerator?" And he's like, "No, not at all. Like, it's all the exact same concepts and whatever. Similar parts, obviously different shapes and whatever." So that got me thinking about our house in Calgary. Calgary's a place that, not many people have AC, right? Because I don't know, by the time the sun goes down, you can open your windows and get a stiff breeze going through and whatever. It's higher elevation and cooler temps there, right? But I had a buddy at one point in time call me. He goes, "Hey, Gare, I got like 4 AC units that fell off the back of a truck. You want one?" Right? I'm like, "Fucking rights I do." So he gives me a smoking deal on this thing, and he goes, "The only thing is they're really big." And I'm thinking to myself, like every other dickhead guy in the world would, like, fucking right, it's bigger the better, right? Well, I come to find out that's not the case. You actually, at least in the residential sense, I assume this would be the same for commercial. You actually want a smaller, they measure it in tons. Like, I used to know this a little better, but it was something like a 2 ton or a 4 ton AC, unit outside of your house. This thing was like a 6 ton or something. And I was like, "Fuck yeah, this thing will like, we can hang meat in the house when we install this," right? Well, no, you actually, based on your square footage and everything, you want less tons. Like, you almost want to overwork it,
yeah.
and then it works better for you. So anyway, this fucking Binford 9000 would freeze over like the evap unit. I don't know what they call it in houses, but you know what I mean? The evap fucking like heater core, it would freeze over. And it was this triangular thing that lived like in the middle of the furnace. So anyway, we'd be middle of summer, kind of laughing at all our friends for not having AC, right? And I'd be out or whatever, and then the wife would call. She's like, "Garrett, it's getting really hot in the house." I'm like, "Motherfucker." Well, that evap unit would turn into a frozen pyramid. Like, I'm talking, guy, it would have 6 inches of ice built up on it. So then here I am, mid-July, cranking the fucking heat to thaw out this frozen pyramid in the middle of my furnace, right? So anyway, long-winded way of saying, it made me wonder, maybe the vintage air like evap units are smaller and
Right.
therefore like work that much better. I don't know. It was just an assumption I had.
Less is more.
In AC, it is, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but moral of the story is that bitch will blow cold. I mean, I don't think you'd ever I know for a fact you would not drive down the road with that thing on max. Like everyone in the car would be putting on fucking toques and mitts. It's cold.
Oh, well, that's good.
Mhm.
You can, who knows? Maybe we'll have a toasty time in Tennessee, right? And you can really put it to work.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, man. I mean, as excited as I am to drive the car with like all the new add-ons, the AC is one that I've literally thought about since I bought the car. You know, like sure, the Kenny Bell was like one of those hypotheticals that I'd seen in the mags and always wanted and stuff like that. But like, I actually remember there was a guy that found out that I bought the car. You know, this is a couple months after, and he flagged me down and he goes, "Oh, I was actually going to buy this car." And he goes, "The first thing that I was going to do to it was put air conditioning in it." And this was back when, like you could just pull into a Ford dealership and ask him to do it. He goes, "Yeah, but it was going to cost me like 2,500 bucks or something." Right. And this is all in 1997. I'm like, holy shit, like that's a third of what they wanted for this fucking thing. So anyways, it was something I always wanted, and it's one of those like, especially at our age now, like modern day conveniences that just really gets you excited to go like, yeah, man, fucking let's go. It's whatever, 100 degrees out. Let's go have fun.
Yeah. No, AC is important, man. I guess when I finally get that motivation to work on the silver notch, that is on the list for that car as well. In fact, the climate control, when I got the silver face gauges done, I actually got one done with the AC on it, knowing that, that was like for an
It's
AC
happening.
control, so that it was already kind of prepped, knowing that it would
It's
happen
coming.
one day. Yeah.
What what were the options in that car? Or is that a true stripper car?
It rear defrost
Yeah. Cruise?
and no cruise,
No cruise. Mirrors?
no mirrors.
Lumbar?
Yeah, lumbar.
Lumbar and defrost.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
So one of the first things I did was I converted to power locks and windows, but I left the
Right.
manual mirrors. Um, and yeah, that's it. So cruise, I don't care about, or I don't care about the cruise. Sorry. And then,
Mhm.
yeah, it just needs some AC.
Right. Okay, yeah, because mine was mirrors, cruise, lumbar, defrost,
Right. Oh, and
which I don't know.
I didn't even have trunk release.
No, I didn't have that either. Yeah, but it was
Okay.
all wired like yours, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All you needed was a button.
Pretty much.
Yep. Yeah, that's all mine needed too. Um, I know, like, there's a part of me. No, you know what? There really isn't. Like, there's not a part of me at all that misses fucking manual windows. I see cars online now, and I'm like, all right, that like, I kind of thumbs up them, right? Like, I like it, I get it, whatever. But like, the amount of, I'm sure if I went and got my fucking back scoped, like it's cockeyed from all of the times that I've like two-handed tinted windows down so I don't get a ticket. You know what I mean? Like, and I just
Yeah.
used to hate the lean over and fucking winding that thing down. It's like, fuck that.
Yeah. No, man, I forget what car it was that Lewis had that I think he went back to manual windows in it or he did something. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? It was like, that's the way the car came or some shit. And I'm like, fuck that. I'm like, Who in their right mind? And like I think once he sold the car, he finally like admitted, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that. Like it was a pain in the ass. But like, and it wasn't even like for a weight savings thing or anything like that. It might have been because that was the interior he had. So it was like, oh, I have a set of manual panels. So I'm going to go back to, manual
Right.
cranks when you put black interior in it. But yeah, no, man, it's a no go for me. Just so
This is it.
archaic.
Oh, shit, yeah, right? Like, okay, I could maybe see, you know, locks. Like, you know what I mean? That's not the end of the world to get over there and do your thing, but, like, when it comes to windows and especially if you live in an area that they're not fond of tinted windows, right? The long arm of the law, you gotta, like, whatever, just get in, 2 fingers, both are down, you're good, right? But the amount of people, man, that have reached out over all this vintage air bullshit going like, "Man, I really kicked myself for getting rid of my AC in my car." It's like, fuck, like, all for what, you
Yeah,
know?
man, I did it in the Stalker Vert. And I actually did it here in Texas. Like it worked when I got it, and I forget. I think after the engine got swapped, it didn't work past then. And like I just it wasn't that I was scared of working on AC. It was just like I didn't know how it worked, and I really
Mm,
had, never really had the luxury of working AC in a Fox, anyways. So I was just like, you know what, clean up the engine
fuck.
bay, one less thing, right? And it was like tensioner delete, using the power steering pump as the tensioner, and what I mean, less is more. And then
Mhm.
yeah, you get your first hot day, or you get caught in some rain, and you're like, holy fuck, where's that AC at? Like, oh.
Yeah, it's true. It is a convenience that I don't know, especially at our age, right? You're just like, okay, whatever. I've fucking put my time in non-AC cars, right? Like it's kind of like whatever. The 50 Asylum boys give everybody a hard time that's got a hoist, but it's like, listen, when you've put as much time in as a lot of us have on our backs, right? And I mean, go this is another one. Like get yourself into a project that requires you on your back under your car on jack stands for like 2.5, 3 days in a row. And tell me how fucking raw your shoulders are from like waddling your way under a car and skidding around and like, fuck that, you know? It's
Yeah.
just now, there are some times where a car on the ground's not a terrible thing, right? Like, if you got a tranny jack and a hoist, okay, that's one thing. But if you're manhandling a transmission in on a hoist, that's not fun. But if you're on your back, you got leverage, right? Like you can
Yeah.
whatever,
No,
put your
there's
ass into it a bit.
man, like doing front suspension better on the ground. I mean? Even
Yep.
like pulling a motor, like I can get pretty much every single last bolt and connection off with the exception of like the lower starter bolt and like the two that go through the engine plate into the bell housing at the bottom. But everything else you can reach from the top.
Hmm.
And I mean, ultimately, you're usually using a cherry picker unless you're going to lift the body off the K member. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that actually works quite well on the ground because, like, I get shit all the time. People are like, "Man, you got all those lifts, and you're always working on the ground." And a lot of it's timing too. It's like by the time you move everything around that you need to play musical cars with, just to get something on the lift to do the task, like, and get it done. You know what I mean? Faster, not worrying about it. So I'll tell you this though, all the shit that I've been doing on the yellow car on the back, the rear suspension, and dealing with, swapping out diff fluid and all that stuff, that is definitely much nicer dealing with up in the air.
Right. Yeah. So, sorry, you kind of alluded to the yellow car, and you think you might be sort of the furthest behind in things you got to do in the next month. So, yeah, fill me in there.
So my yellow conies finally got delivered from up in Canada. So they're the Dutch valved conies straight from Holland.
Nice.
Um, I got Coney quads in red, which I didn't even know red was still an option.
Hmm.
but it is apparently. So the two quads, this endeavor wasn't cheap. So the quads were $400, and I want to say the struts and the shocks are 1,200. So I'm like 1,600 deep just in fucking rebound.
USD.
USD.
Ooh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's deep.
I was doing lots of digging and research on Dutch spring rates because obviously the yellow car needs an altitude adjustment. Now,
Mhm.
I installed a set of grabbers, which should drop the rear of the car 3/4 of an inch. At the same time, I had a set of grabbers sent away to get scanned and recreated. So at the same time that, I drilled to get the grabber on, which relocates lower control arm a little more down, helping with your pinion angle and stuff. Like it's what a new age Maxim Motorsport control arm would do, but the Dutch variety from the 90s. So um, I want to recreate them. So I got a prototype back. So of course I'm doing test fitting on that, making sure all that shit works, which it does. So hopefully that'll be an option here in the near future for market. And I also sent two springs that I had to what is called the spring dyno, which measures the spring rates of the spring. So I've had
Oh,
all these
cool.
Dutch springs with a variety of part numbers listed on them. And Peter Hansen, I reach out, I'm like, do you remember what any of these part numbers are? And it was like, no. It's like, maybe that's the year. Maybe that means front. Maybe that means rear. Like, who the fuck knows, right? So Dutch had a consumer orientation release that had a high performance spring option and a competition spring option. High
Mm.
performance, a little bit of a lower spring rate, and progressive springs on both counts. Both sets of springs lowered your car by 1.5 inches. Just one had a more aggressive spring rate than the other. So I'm trying to that's why I had like one of each, or what I thought was one of each. Come to find out, Dutch never made their own competition spring. They advertised it, and in fact, it was like some first generation Eibach race spring that they used, and had that as an offering. And this is like part of the, again, going on like the Dutch documentation or documentary journey, right? So in the groups, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of people now that are surfacing and sharing info and stuff, which is great. So um, so it was really just this high performance spring, which the numbers lined up. And then there was the other spring came back, and the email to me was like, are you sure this is a Dutch spring? Because it starts at like 850 pounds per inch and ends at 1,700.
Oh, yeah. Is this out of a fucking 3/4 ton 78 Ford or
Yeah.
what?
So that one is what is the actual speed drive spring that got developed later on. So that was actually developed for the SN95 cars. And and it was the one that came out of my Dutch number five. And knowing that my Dutch number five car kept going in for whatever the latest and greatest offering that Dutch had was, it made sense that that spring was in there. And that's a front rated spring. So come to find out, Dutch never released the official spring rates on that spring. It was known as the 1,000+ pound per inch spring that nobody could really understood how something with such a stiff spring rate could perform so well. So
Hmm.
to put it into perspective, you take a stock factory front spring, I think they measure like 14 inches and change or something like that. The high performance Dutch spring is 1.5 inches lower. That speed drive spring is 1.5 inches lower than the high performance spring. So it's 3 inches lower than a stock spring. But because the damn spring rate is so stiff, it's still only 1.5 inches drop when it's compressed in the car.
Okay. Huh.
So the good news here is that this mission I was on to try and figure out the difference between high performance and competition has been completely debunked. So there was really two Detch part numbered branded springs, with the exception of a third rear spring that was used for ASG cars. And the only difference with that rear spring is it had, I think, three additional dead coils, which a dead coil means they all touch each other. So an active coil is when there's nothing touching. Dead coils is like when you got some weight, and if they're touching, that means they don't count. They count, but they don't.
Okay.
It's all part of the math. So the importance of this is that I wanted to do some sacrificial testing of a Dutch spring by removing some material to find a happy in between of a slightly increased spring rate of the high performance spring that Dutch offered, and resulting in that 3 inches of low that the speed drive spring is, but that's not actually lowering it the 3 inches because it's so damn stiff. And of course, you wouldn't dare cut one of those speed drive springs because fuck, the spring rate would end up at like 2000
Yeah.
um, or something insane. And you might as well as be riding on washers. So um, I've removed probably about a coil and 3/4 out of the rear one, and plus with the grabber. So I'm hoping that the math will kind of end up where I want it to be. So this is just talking about the rear. The front should be a little easier because I'm not worried about, I don't have grabbers or something else that's altering suspension geometry. So I should just be able to chop what I need out of there, and then I'll do my testing to see if how it rides, and if everything rides the way that I'm hoping it will ride with all this Coney setup and everything else, um, then those will go out for production as my own tip Dutch inspired extra low spring. Because, the other thing that we got to keep in mind, right? Like when Dutch was around, or any of these guys were around when they're making lower springs, like 16-inch wheel, 17-inch wheel was the norm. But like now, everybody, an 18-inch wheel is the norm. Sometimes even a
Mm,
19-inch wheel, which is automatically technically raising the car up. So it's really just kind of now a correction based on the wheel and tires that we're running this day and age, to
yeah.
make stuff look proper. So um, that's where that's at. So it's been, I've
Mm.
been messing with a lot of math, a lot of formulas, and a lot of back and forths, and trying to
Well,
come up with
yeah.
a
So
good
just
solution.
clear this up for me again. There's competition, and that's kind of your entry level. Then there's high performance.
High performance was the entry level,
Okay. Then
and then
competition,
competition. Yep, and then speed drive.
speed drive. Okay. And those are like the three front spring options. And then in the rear, was there a third option as well? Like
So
speed
that's
drive option, whatever?
technically the yeah. So the high performance was front and rear, right? So they have a starting at it's like 400, ending at just under 6, something like that. Spring rate in the front. The rears are like um shit. I gotta double check. That's like 220 to like 300, somewhere around there. Like all rear springs are honestly so close. So what I
Right.
found out is that that competition offering that was really a front Eibach, they were still using the high performance rears of their own. They just put a stiffer spring rated front in for competition use.
Hmm.
And then once they developed the speed drive was still using the high performance rear. So like nothing
Right.
really changed in the rear. It's like they were happy with the high performance rear in all scenarios. It was just really more on the front, probably in terms of like nosedive under braking and the body roll and stuff like that going through, you know what I mean, as you're braking, going through corners and all that stuff. So clearly the focus was on the front. And then, yeah, if you had an ASG car, which there wasn't that many ASGs, right? We're talking, I think there was only 12 ASG cars out there, which means they wouldn't have made a lot of springs specific to those, but it's still the high performance spring just with a couple extra coils on it. most likely, because ASG would have had grabbers on it as well to maybe compensate with that and just the way that the ASG worked. So
Hmm.
that's what I've learned.
Holy shit, eh? Yeah, talk about a crash course and I guess investigation slash prototyping slash, like fuck.
And the progressive rate, right, versus linear, because the motorsport springs, like a C spring, for instance, which apparently Dutch messed around with, and that used to be my go-to spring. I'd always take a Ford C spring, cut a coil out of it, and they're a fairly stiff spring out of the gate. Um, but being linear, that spring rate, I mean, I think it's close to 600 pounds. Which if you cut a coil out of it, it's probably 650 or 675 or whatever. But it stays that as more weight compresses on the spring. So it's never increasing. It's always right. That's 600 pounds. If it sees 600 pounds, it's compressing an inch versus these progressive springs that that Dutch seems to always have favored the progressive side of things. You get a little bit of a softer rate, and as you get more weight, the spring rate goes up. So you need more weight to get more of an inch down of compression, which kind of makes sense. You hit a bump, right? You kind of want an initial little bit of soft, and then you want it to kind of stiffen up so that you don't bottom out or you go too far or anything like that.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like the progressive always made logical sense to me. It seems like, if you were to look at the history of springs, we went from just like, we need something in here so it's not like you say washers or just solid fucking metal. And then it's like, okay, well, how could we make that better, right? And that's where like the progressive spring would come into the mix. And I mean, unless, well, the fact that they were doing this in race applications, and I'm just spitballing here, right? Obviously, I don't know fuck all here, but like in race applications, you would almost want, like, I think anyway, a similar, um, like you would want the car to act similar in all situations, which would almost maybe be a knock on the progressive, you know? Um, But then when it comes to like selling parts and having a street driven car, like progressive just makes so much sense, right? Because, it's not a racetrack. You're going to have potholes. You're going to have changes and this, that, and the other thing. And somebody might have a coffee between their legs. You know what I mean? Versus
Yeah.
race car shit, where you just want this thing to go as fast around the track as possible. And I think that's where like current day shit with this like mag ride and all this fucking whatever, right? Magnetized mercury or whatever they're doing. Um, it's progressive on steroids, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No. And I think trying to think about like the whole progressive thing, especially with these speed drive springs. Man, I should actually pull up the rates so I can speak factually here on them. But like if
Right.
you think about it, right, like if you're nose diving, right, braking, coming up to a corner, and I'm just trying to think of like the weight transfer and everything else. If you were, let's say, static, so let's say instead of this, um, whatever, let's just say it's 1,500 pounds per inch, that is the ending spring rate. If you were starting at 1,500 pounds, right, then you would probably lock the wheels up more.
Right. Yeah.
Or your ABS is going fucking crazy or whatever, right? Because like you're not, like it's just nothing's giving. And I think that that's there again, going into the math and the physics and everything like that. It's almost like you need that little bit of give. And that was
Yeah.
probably the argument, right? Like you're probably like, "Oh man, you're crazy even starting off at 800 or um whatever it is that rate was." But yeah, I think it's all in that give and then getting to the certain point of okay, how far can you push it? And then that's determining how fast can you go into that corner, how fast can you get out of that corner. Are you going to be able to like um like stick to the ground? And I think ultimately at the end of the day, that picture of the SN95 car up on two wheels around the corner is probably a testament to the stiffness, right?
Yeah, that thing cut that corner a little tight, and she was unloading and fucking brought the two wheels
Yeah.
right off the ground. Yeah, look like those Arab guys that do the fucking two-wheel competitions driving around on
Oh
two
yeah.
wheels. Well,
So yeah, so the starting spring rate, now mind you, with a load of just like 189 pounds, um, was 754. So if you factor in the rear of a Fox, I think they say like just let's say race car shit, probably 1200-ish pounds in the oh sorry, this is front. So the front would be it's probably what 2000 pounds in the front versus
yeah,
like 1200
give
in
or
the
take.
rear, something like that. So if we were 2184 pounds, um, the rate started at 1048. And at 4,900 pounds, ended at 1712.
Jesus.
So the question would be is how much weight transfer in a racing condition, you know what I mean? Does it get up to 3,200? Does it get up to 4,000? Like how much weight are you really throwing at it? So if it was 4,000, for instance, it was just under 1,600,
Right.
um, which is pretty, I mean, like that's some aggressive stuff. It's pretty neat, like how this works on the whole spring dyno thing.
Oh, yeah. No, totally. So, this makes me think I was actually just talking to, Todd, Boosted 347 there at the green LX hatch on the Gram. Yeah. So, talking to him about this the other day, I can't remember if maybe he sent me an Instagram reel of, some guys in Oregon, like, out in great big lifted pickups in the snow and stuff. And I ended up sending him some back because there's a huge group of guys in and around this area. They call themselves the snow wheelers. And these guys build like it actually amazes me that some network hasn't caught on to this. I think they just don't do a good enough job of like sharing the info, which I can admire, right? This is like the quiet guy in the garage just doing his thing, bad Chad shit. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Just fucking leave me alone. I like working on stuff. These are those guys, but we're talking like, you know, fucking punched out and bored out 632s on alcohol, like big fucking power and like huge tires, like military axles. I mean, this stuff is, I'm getting goosebumps telling you, it's fucking cool shit, right? And anyway, these guys are out running around like all day long in like 5, 6 feet of snow just for fun, right? And they do this every weekend, right? Well, something that I don't know which one of, but what one of them was that kind of hooked onto this and like gave it a go or gave it a try. But much like the racing world, right? Where like as you're out doing these things, you go like, right? As you're doing it, and you go, maybe that would work a little bit better for our scenario or whatever. And now, as you can imagine, running big tires and great big lifted trucks, these things are running on like king coil shocks that are fucking enormous, right? Well, you get a great big high ground clearance vehicle like that, and all of a sudden you want to get yourself into a little bit of a, side hill type scenario or whatever. And it's like, holy shit, like we're going over. Well, whoever it was that first thought of this, they started using, and I think these are just like cheap off the shelf, like Harbor Freight or Princess Auto, whatever, hydraulic rams that they're using like to suck the suspension down. So like
Mm.
when you think hydraulics in cars, right? It's always to like push up. These guys are using them in the opposite fashion to like suck one side of the vehicle down. And like these guys get really technical with it where it's all operated off joystick. And it'll
Hmm.
be like, you know, forward to the right is fucking front corner, you know what I mean? And they're one hand in this, fucking running nitrous with their toes and joysticking this fucking thing through the weeds, right? And so anyway, building off of this conversation, right? I'm like, everybody's always done things like in a dampening fashion, like to like either soften or speed up how fast that thing dampens, but nobody's ever like sucked a corner down intentionally. You know what I mean? And like when you're building off this whole spring rate conversation, it's like, huh. Now, these guys are doing this somewhat at speed, but like not racetrack speeds by any means, right? We're talking two different universes. So they have all the time in the world to like dick around. Because you think about it, like, what's the worst case scenario that could happen if this was happening at high speeds? Is you suck, say, the front passenger corner of your car down and you need it to react, inside of a third of a second. Well, that thing needs to release just as fast as you sucked it down, or all of
Yeah.
a sudden you're in the fucking weeds, right? But yeah, when you're talking spring rates, and I mean the amount of conversations that I can only imagine that Detch and Celine and all these guys that were doing the road racing back in the day had over like just because I mean springs they've been around for how many hundreds of years, you know what I mean? Like since fucking wagons were yarded across the plains, and yeah, like they're just when you got your spring, like the two options, like we've said, are either just constant or progressive. And and then there's dampening beyond that. But the sucking of things down, especially with today's tech, you know what I mean? And how fast you can get something to like fire and react. And I mean, fuck, I don't know, like trying to think of a good example to like lay over this as an analogy, but like these cars can, especially with today's tech, react really, really quickly. But I've yet to see anyone say anything regarding sucking something down in order to like get that front corner or that right hand side sucked in and like kind of
Yeah.
angled up for a corner, right?
Yeah, because usually it's all like on the dampening side of things, not on the spring side, right? So it's like even the Range Rover, it's like, okay, yeah, you're in sand mode, you're in dynamic mode, you're in this mode, you're in that mode. Well, that's really just, electronically controlling what we would have to pop the hood and fucking or in the trunk and turn the dials up, whether it's 16-way adjustable or 32-way adjustable, whatever it is. There's just a computer that's controlling that. But to your point, Brit's Range Rover is actually it's got springs and it doesn't have the air ride because we didn't want to have to worry about air ride complications in the future that they're
Hmm.
known for, right? But like air kind of does give you that, right? Because like there's a thing called comfort access mode in a Range Rover where like it drops the suspension down 6 inches for you to get in and out. Now, one
Right.
could argue, and there's actually some software you can get out of Europe that you can pretty much hijack the body control for the air ride system so you can actually ride around, up to 6 inches lower on your daily driving, right? Um, Now, with that said, you're sucking springs or your suspension down or whatever, it's potentially at that point, it's well, what's the impact on the dampening?
Mm.
Right, because it is, you're cutting springs and you're lowering your vehicle down, and now your shocks and your struts are now sitting lower than where they should be, by
Yep.
default, which is impacting the way that that rebound and everything else is performing, which is a whole other conversation, which I'm working on to complement this whole spring adventure I'm on. Um, but yeah, like if you could just say, okay, yeah, I'm riding at 500 pounds per inch. Well, let's increase that to 600 pounds per inch because we're going to take some corners a little tighter here.
Yeah.
It's like if you
And
could
I
have
mean,
an electronically controlled spanner on your coil over, being like, you
right.
know what, put more preload on this spring because
Yeah.
that's what it's doing. Like that's
Yeah.
what we're talking about here. So if you could just kind of electronically do that, but at the end of the day, it's sort of air ride.
It is, I guess, just probably the argument that comes to mind is like air ride can react quickly, but like when you're talking air ride versus hydraulic, like hydraulic's fucking instant. You know,
Yeah.
you've never seen a car on air popping the front end off the ground. You know what I mean? Um, it will if you're, like new to it, kind of like I am. I mean, you hit up and like you're up quick. Like it throws air at those bags quick. But versus a hydraulic scenario, it's, two different time spans. I guess the only other knock of like actually sucking something down, unless you could have it release just as quickly as you've sucked it down, is now all of a sudden you've just your rebound's gone
Yeah.
to whatever point you've sucked that thing down to. Right now you just got that ceiling you're banging off of, right?
So you actually just had me thinking with the air ride thing. Because the problem is, right, you let air out of the bag, you're sucking down, but it's not helping the stiffness. It's actually working against you, right? It's the opposite thing. So now you've actually created more of a mushy situation. I'm wondering if there would be a way to design an airbag that almost has like two separate chambers, like a single bellow versus a dual, right? And if you could run, let's say if it was a dual, you just run one of the duals at, let's say, 50 psi. And the other one's at 0, right?
Yeah.
What would happen if you put 25 psi in the dual? Would you be at the same height, but potentially
Oh,
increase, like, would there be a way, or like a smaller bellow with a larger bellow, and then
right.
somehow work between the two so that way you can say, hey, listen, don't impact my ride height, but switch the air to the smaller bellow, which is going to ultimately increase the so-called air spring rate of the bag and increase performance.
Yeah. No, I'm following you, buddy. I mean, it's almost like a progressive airbag, right?
Yeah. And then that way you could get the air. Now, air is a little, it's pretty quick, like if you have the compressors and the valving for it. But if you actually ran nitrogen through it, I don't know if you've ever seen a nitrogen tank hooked up to an air ride system, but it's like just as fast as hydraulics. The only
Oh,
downfall
really?
to it, yeah, is that the nitrogen gets really cold when it gets released out, because obviously everything in a bottle's, well, I think, yeah, it's probably liquid and turns into gas, right? Um, it'll freeze your valves over if you keep playing with it. So my buddies back in the Fast and Furious days, they had all these air, they were running cylinders. So it was like the new age hydraulic, um, if you will, right? It wasn't a bag, it was actually just an air cylinder that looked like a normal hydraulic setup that ran off air. And they'd fucking go to the, gas outfit or whatever, go get these big bottles of nitrogen, hook them up. So they'd be sitting there doing boop, boop, psh, 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 psh. And then all of a
Oh,
sudden the cars they'd be froze. They get stuck after like, 30 seconds of messing with it because all the valves froze over.
huh.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so two thoughts on your progressive air ride hypothesis here. So, yeah, like one way, when I think of like um what say Chuck's car with the ride tech air strut looks like versus mine, I mean, you might be able to argue that you could like run the ride tech inside of say one of my front struts.
Yeah.
Or the other side of this would be you run an air strut and then you run a bag like in your silver car in the spring.
Duel it up.
Yeah. Right.
I think that'd
Um,
be really interesting in terms of because what it comes down to, and this is what I hate about coilovers. Same thing with, I believe in this, right? So when you're looking at spring rates and you're doing the math, the diameter in between the coils is a massive impact. And that part of the calculation is almost exponential. So that's why when, these guys are running coilovers, you're running 150, 180 pounds per inch springs. And that's the
Mhm.
equivalent to our traditional 600 pound per inch springs in the spring pocket, all
Right.
because, right, they're smaller
Smaller
in
diameter.
diameter. And things are just, yeah, the behavior is more exponential. And I don't even know if coilover springs have a progressive option. I don't, I want to say off the top of my head, I don't think they do. I think you are stuck with linear. I could be wrong. I've never really explored it too much, but um, yeah, it's just when you get into, right, that larger surface area, versus the smaller. If you could balance in between the two, because one is like behaving exponentially in one way, and the other one is you got a progressive option, or you can do linear as well. So if you could almost make them work in conjunction and turn,
Mhm.
like with air, because you can turn one off and turn the other on, or you can make them work cohesively at
Yeah.
any given time.
No, 100%, man. Um, I know, and like this is a hard thing to put into words because unless you've ridden in your car or I guess Lewis's car are the only two that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's one or two others out there, right? But that have that traditional like big bag in the spring pocket. Like the for a cruiser, the ride you get from that is second to none. Like not only are you very, very comfortable, but you're like very, very positive as well. Like it's co- it's like it's everything your mind wishes a progressive spring would be in air. Like
Yeah.
it's quite honestly the best of the best. Um so I mean, yeah, if you could almost have yourself set up with that, right? For cruising. And then, yeah, you want to do a little more air quotes spirited driving. And, you got your air coil or, pardon me, air strut um, that you throw a little extra juice in and stiffen the front end up. Yeah, maybe that's the answer. It's a lot of fucking airlines and a lot of, you know what I mean? When you think about plumbing it.
It, and you know what? Like, it'd be interesting too to actually have like some air management that could, like, if you really got involved into like the whole, okay, look at measuring the G's, your
Yeah.
braking, the impact, and like auto adjusting the air accordingly to like say, okay, this is the spring rate that I want to be when there's this much G force applied to this corner. Like, make it happen. Fucking make those valves do whatever it is that they got to do between those two bags.
Yeah.
Um, there'd be
Yeah.
a
Have it
lot of
off some
coding.
sort of Mercury switch, right? That's like pitch and yaw and all that stuff factored
Yeah.
in, right? Um, yeah, I know.
Maybe
That would be
maybe
cool.
some cool nerdy stuff to fuck around with.
Well, it would for sure. I know, and I think the thing that steers, well, probably even still to this day, I'm just assuming here, so nobody whatever hold my feet to the fire, but I think why you don't see more of this in, like uh, the racing world is people think that, well, the bag fails, you're fucked. And it is true, but like I encourage you the next time you're behind any fucking big rig on the road, like hauling heavy freight, they're all on air. Every fucking one of them.
And the reality is the traditional ride tech bags were Firestone bags. The
Yeah.
same shit. Like, it's not like this was some, cheap whatever Chinese unknown untested airbag. Like, they literally found shit from Firestone that worked. And the front bags still exist. You can still buy the front bags from Firestone. The only reason why Ride Tech stopped doing it was just because of those rear bags, which Lewis seems to have found, right, a possible alternative from, I think, Universal Air or somebody, I forget the name, which is in his Cobra. Um, but yeah, no, the air is a completely different thing. There was a guy actually on. There's a real nice white notch. on like some Termy style Cobra wheels, and it was slammed, and someone's like, "Oh, I think it's on air," and this guy just, I don't know what rock he's been living underneath. Um, was just like, "Oh, fuck that air ride," and blah 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 blah, and um, it was like a self cleaning oven though. Somebody else chimed in and was like, "Oh, have you like not known that there's been a lot of progression and technology in this stuff?" But,
Yeah.
anyways, um, I get it. It's not for everybody, but man, like if you're gonna drop a whole bunch of money on coilovers in your street driven car, I'd throw it at air ride any day over.
Yeah,
If you're going
I
that
know,
far.
buddy. Yeah, we're gonna agree a lot with each other on this one. I mean, yeah, 150%. It's funny though, like I think it's just one of those things, like, if you grew up in a Ford family or a Mopar family, like, you know what I mean? It's just in your fucking DNA to like disagree with that whole, like, it's just hogwash, right? Don't even think or worry about it. Um, but yeah, I don't know, until you've done it. And I mean, based on the overall cost of one of these kits versus like what they used to be too. I mean, you're coilover territory easily. And I mean, just for that, like, I don't know, I'd encourage anyone to give it a go. Like, it's it's the best of all worlds too. Like, you know, and I know this is kind of cheesy, but like I mean, probably like you or Lewis, and you get comments all the time like, "Holy fuck, what's the suspension setup?" It's like, well, we're kind of cheating here, right? Like that's parked status. Okay, you can't drive down the road like that, but it's cool and it looks great. Like I walk in the shop and see that fucking car sitting there in aired out status, and I'm like, "Yep." Like, because dude, it's been a while since we talked about this, right? But I mean, you think about all the calendars and like what when you see a car parked, um, like that's sort of the picture that everybody sort of cooks up in their mind of like what their dream car is supposed to look like. And air ride, I mean, much like fake tits, allows you to do that. You know what I mean? Like, and then when everybody goes, all right, boys, let's go. Fuck, all right, we're out of here.
Yeah. No, man, it's
It,
true. It's I don't know. It just gives you that look, gives you the flexibility, and especially you got something nice, you don't want to fuck it up, right? Like
yeah.
if the stalker vert had perfect paint, I wouldn't want to be rolling around static on it the way that I am. But um, yeah, no, that whatever. It's people will get over it. I'm sure they will.
That's just it, pal. I mean, I think too of like hauling the car over in the trailer and stuff. Like it, it's one of those things that not only does it check all the boxes we just discussed, right? Looks cool parked and goes down the road really nice and whatever. But like you never have that thought in the back of your head, like let's say in a coilover sense where you're like, fuck, I gotta load that thing up. I gotta crank them up to get it in the trailer. Or I want to put it on the hoist. Cause let's be honest, a lot of us love working on these things just as much as we do driving them. I mean, maybe even more. So like, got to put it on jack stands, got to put it on the hoist, whatever. It's a push of a button. Like it's just as
Yeah.
quick as fucking dialing your buddy on your phone. It gives you so much versatility. I it sounds like we're none of us, me and Chris aren't fucking sponsored by anybody here, guys. So we're not pumping anything. We're just literally telling you like our experience on it.
Yeah. No, well, and some R&D possibilities too, right? Trying to cross over the old school bag world with the new school, which I think I'm really curious now because I'm just thinking, right? Because like the air struts, right? Like the Fox technology of the actual rebound inside and everything else, it'd actually be um, really cool to mess around with that. And I'd probably argue
Would.
too to get like a shorter housing. So that's the other thing too, right? Like, they don't go as low as just the bag would. Like you'd end up,
Yeah.
truck. Don't get me wrong, truck's car looks great, but it is limited in the front more than I was expecting.
Yeah. Which, man, it's funny you say that because I was underneath my car the other day, and so on the hoist, in what I've kind of, I've sort of joked with you and said, like, I haven't really spent enough time with this car to even know what the fuck my PSI should be aired out versus ride height. You know what I mean? It's whatever. Haven't spent enough time in the seat of it. Well, anyway, I'm on the hoist and I'm underneath it and I'm in aired out status, or at least what I would consider to be. And I'm under there with a light and I'm looking up in the wheel well and I'm like, fuck me. Like, I still got like another inch, inch and a half. Like, if I really wanted to push it before I'm like tire on wheel well.
Right.
So, and I mean, I think when I'm in aired out status, I think there's still probably like 35, 40 PSI in those bags.
Oh shit, you got a fuck ton of air in
Yeah.
there. So,
Yeah.
what's your camber sitting at like your cruising? Like, did you go for like just zero, or did you put any negative at it?
Yeah, I'm fairly square at cruising. That was where I did all my whatever alignment
So what
measurements.
you should do, you should throw at your cruising, get -1 degrees at cruise. It's not going to impact anything, but what it's going to do is, I bet you, as you go down more, you'll be the wheel will go inside, and it's going to alleviate that rub, because you'll probably end up at like -3 or 4 degrees even in full aired out status. Because
Well,
I had to fuck around with it with my silver car. So I had my silver car was dialed up the same way, 0 degrees, like straight at. I think I usually cruise around like 80, 80 front, 25, 30 rear, something like that. Um, and when I put the 1810s, the Oz wheels in the front, there was that point that just the tires started kissing the fender.
yep.
And um, as it went down, though, right, like the camber does increase. So I just like gave it a little bit more camber, and it completely fixed the whole situation.
Hmm. Right. Yeah, because I know, like, since going to this new set of tires, um, I'm kind of more that front tires kind of in that wrapped scenario or stretch scenario,
Right.
um, which bought me some real estate for sure. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I gotta like this is
You got
another
to get
thing,
it
man.
down to zero. Like parked needs to be 0 psi.
Yeah. What is zero parked for you in the silver car?
Yep.
Mm,
No
so
air
just hit nowhere in front or back.
or back. Completely
Fuck.
deflated.
That takes all the guesswork out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I'm sitting here like taking notes on my phone, like, okay, parked is X in the front, Y in the
Well,
back.
you'd hate to fucking hit the button by mistake or something happen. Well, let's just say you did lose air. Uh,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Then, like, you're not gonna be able to sustain that 30 or whatever it is to keep your tire off the fender wall. So, yeah, man, I just go in,
true.
get that quick trick on there, and just grab yourself an extra degree. It's like negative,
Yeah.
like, man, my Lightning in the front, I think I'm riding at -2.5 degrees of camber, like, just on the daily. Um, and like, there is whatever, you can look up the spec, but like, yeah, -1 won't do any weird, crazy tire wearing or anything like that.
I've even got the spec sheet saved somewhere. I want to say it's like half a degree or something.
It gives you a negative
Um,
half, which, whatever,
yeah,
if that's spec and you're only a half more over that, like, come on, like, I bet you your tires will be good for 3 years still.
yeah, I'm sure there's engineers absolutely fucking twisting the leather up their steering wheel at us right now having this conversation, but yeah, I know what you mean. Well, and that's the thing that I always go back to as well is like, the amount of actual miles that we put on these cars that we spend more time working on than we do driving. You know what I mean? It's like, what are we really fucking worried about
Yeah, like
here,
the tires are gonna be like weather checked and cracked and flat
Yeah.
spotted before you need to worry about the camber wear.
Yeah. 100%, man. Um, I sent Lewis a voice note the other night because he was checking in and actually giving me some shit about how I introduced him on the last pod, right? Going, yeah, he's been running around bareback for the last however many months. And so anyway, I said, yeah, unless our weather smartens up, which it was starting to the other day, and since then it has been good. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna get any fucking miles on this car. Like, I might push that thing out of the trailer in Tennessee and go, right, let's road test this bitch. Or maybe get the wife to fucking drive for a bit and I can put some road miles on it, do the Smoky and the Bandit. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to figure out my logistics. I should be fine. Like I'll be able to get the front suspension stuff knocked out here by the end of the weekend. I've got an appointment at the exhaust shop next Wednesday to get the old school Magna hose sorted out on the rear. And then if all goes well, I'm going to drive it to Waco on Thursday and get Keith to do the stereo outfitting in the
Stereo.
trunk. I actually went old school, man. I got myself a Stinger 5 farad capacitor.
Really?
Yeah, because the
Dude.
Stinger's got like the big yellow fucking lightning bolt on it. I'm like, fuck, I got to
Yep.
do it.
I've I've got an old Stinger, oh, fuck, I wanna say it's blue and red. No, maybe it's not a Stinger. Shit. See, where I wanna go with this is, like, I have turned every fucking automotive corner of my life upside down looking for that thing, and I can't find it for the life of me. I mean, and it's one of those things, it's been with me as long as the sub has that's in my car, an old Rockford 12-inch sub. I mean, so this capacitor has been like like I'm talking fucking proper, like, exhaust hose, um, fucking U-bolted, like to
Right.
speaker boxes, variations of speaker box. This thing's been with me forever. I can't find it to save my
Shit.
life. There's
Damn.
such a cool deal too, right? Like just speaking of dampeners, like an electronic dampener.
Yeah, and it's got a little digital readout on there letting you know your voltage
Yep.
is where it should be. So, yeah, I was like, whatever, man. I'm gonna add to the nostalgia to everything. Give Keith something else. He has to build some MDF around and wrap it.
Right.
But yeah. So yeah,
And then what
Brits.
were the subs? You went with a shallow sub, right?
No, I ended up going with these fucking. So I first got the same box that I put in the Cali Coupe, which was sealed for 210s. And I knew by removing the what you call it tension rods, you could slide it in there. And those one or that box, and it's Amazon special, right? Like $100 for a nice carpeted box, right? And 3/4 inch MDF, like can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Um, and that required shallow subs. And then because everything in the front of that car is all like old school MB Court reference, which was like the top of the line shit. I was like getting like, well, what other MB Court subs still exist these days? And they have these fucking massive, like, dude, they got to be 60 pounds a sub.
Oh, really?
And,
Big
um,
old magnets on them and
and of course, I'm now looking at the cubic footage. So what I really wanted to do is I really wanted to get 310s across the
yeah.
back, just something. And the only way to have done it would have been the shallow subs, just because I would have been fighting cubic footage. So then I found these Big Daddy 10-inch, whatever, fucking top of the line shit that they have. And like, I think we spoke about it a little bit because it was about going down the rabbit hole. So it was like where the two shallow tens in the box worked out to be like $200. I think I was in each sub for like 300 in the new box. Like it was what I did was literally 5 times more expensive. So
Right.
I found this 210 prefab ported box that would work with these monstrosities, but I didn't know if that box would fit in the trunk. And it took me probably 15 minutes with the trunk latch, unbolted and trying to like get part of the box down into the spare tire well and maneuver, but it fit like barely.
Oh,
So, because I was like, worst case scenario, everything's eBay free returns or Amazon free returns. If it fits, then I'll rock it. So, um, that's what I ended up going with. And of course, at this point, because these subs take however many like 1,000 watts RMS of each. So now I went from 1 amp that was going to run the two shallows to what, like two monoblock amps, like one for each fucking sub.
really?
So, um, yeah, needless to say, it should pound pretty good. I'm excited for it.
No shit. This all reminds me. Uh, I don't know where this video was filmed. I saved it as an Instagram reel the other day. It was somebody interviewing another guy from company XYZ. Shit, I wish I had more details. I'll have to find it here. About some sort of new aged, shallow, all in one, like kind of like your JBL spare tire box, right? But this
Yep.
was just a standard issue rectangle, built-in amp, everything. Very impressive unit, right? Well, I mean, unless you're going down the road that you are, where it's like full blown, air quote custom shit. Um, I just saw this box and I was like, holy fuck, everybody in a notch needs to know about this thing, you know,
Right.
like it's the answer. Um, hey, and speaking of subs and heavy and big magnets, what were the ones like? It was right around the time that we all started kind of falling out of the mix and probably buying vehicles that already had decent stereos in them. So we forgot about the aftermarket. But I think it was like a JL W6. Does this ring a bell?
Yep.
And
Yeah,
these
because they had
things were
they had like there was a whole range of W's, but I think the W6 was like the highest
right.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, this fucker's blowing your windshield out, right? Like these things were impressive units. Um, and then you say imported box too. I mean, I never paid close enough attention to like the engineered science of all this stuff. I know that there's cubic feet measurements and whatever, but like we were always so constrained, especially in the foxbody world, to like space that you could actually put a box, right? So it really just boiled down to, well, whatever, right? It fits and let's rock it. But yeah, ported versus sealed, and like I can still, that's one of those memories of mine as a kid of like putting your hand over the port of a proper like ported sub box and feeling that fucking wind blast by your hand,
Yeah.
like I can feel it right now.
Oh.
So awesome.
Yeah, and to be honest, I do typically favor the sound of a sealed box. Um, Not to say you can't really dial in um a ported box to sound good, but um yeah, the ported box are like the band passes were the way to go, right?
Right.
Like sealed within the ported box, and then um that was like the one that you could make a 10 sound like it was two 15s.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I know. Fuck, those were good days, hey?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, it's like kind of designing like a muffler. You know what I mean? Like the inner
Yep.
workings and deflecting the sound within, right? Your Flowmaster or whatever it is you might have. It's a similar thing with the bass, or it's like the box facing the back, or it's like you wanted to like get it off the hatch. Hatchbacks were always great for stereos, right? You get it,
Yep.
just send it off the back window, project it back towards the front, off the windshield, and into your face, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%. There's still like I've got a little CD book. It's the only thing that I've got left is like remnants of, a person's 4 fucking sectioned case logic type CD book, right? But I mean, there's songs that'll come up as I'm rolling through some of those and I'm like, this was the one. Like you know, if you grew up in the towns, like I know I've been to Chris's hometown and mine's very similar to like if you didn't have, you know, song XYZ cranked up and started at the fucking start of your loser lap that you were about to run. You know what I mean? Like it's I don't know, man. Like it's those silly little memories, you know what I mean, that just take you back
Yeah.
instantly, right? And
So
the fact that I've still got some of those CDs is fucking wild.
oh, I've got a case that has gone around like the group of friends, and I forget how I ultimately ended up with it, but yeah, like the fucking Pure Dance, like the 3 circles on the CDs and like
Yeah.
the fucking Booty Mix version 3 or whatever the hell it was, and Genuine, you needed to
Oh,
have
yeah.
that. Um, all of these things, man. Yeah, no, it's crazy. The problem now is like got the case and it's like the foil part of the CDs have all started like deteriorating. So like the CD will always work good on the first couple tracks, then all of a sudden there'll be like a glitch, or then it like
Yeah.
really gets into the scratches, or it's just physical pieces of the disc missing at this point.
How
So,
many CDs do you have you licked growing up to try to get it to stop skipping and play properly?
oh man, it was like the shirt trick. I think I did. Man, I'd like buff and polish, or take wax to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just take a little buffing compound, try and we need that track not to skip.
This is it, because nothing worse than, like, mid-cruise on a loser lap and your fucking CD starts skipping, right?
And you know what? I actually had this one CD. Like I went to extreme lengths, and this would have been, I don't know, 2006. Like we're pretty much almost out of CDs at this point, but it was, I was going through all my folders from all the years, and it was like, okay, I'm taking all the best. Like this is the infamous fucking mixtape or mix
Yeah.
CD or whatever, right? And so I have this CD, and it's just like it's got just the timeless ones you can listen to over and over and over again. And my friend Kevin, he's like, "Man, can I borrow that CD? I'm going to pick this girl up in like Niagara Falls, which is like 3 hour drive, right?" And he's got a rental car or something through work. I forget what it is. I'm just like, sure, make sure I get the fucking CD back.
Yeah.
He leaves it in the fucking rental car.
Oh, dude.
Oh yeah, man, I'm still like, obviously, it's like burned this memory into my mind. It's just like fuck, and it wasn't like I didn't save the project. You know what I mean? An ISO burner or fucking burn whatever goddamn software we used. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
um, yeah, and I was like, man, like going through all those folders and trying to grab shit, like it wasn't something I wanted to do again. So yeah,
Well,
fucking
that's
Kevin.
just it, right? And even with, like, current day tech, I mean, I've thought about it a few times, but, I mean, time is the thing that we all wish we had more of. It's like, I should sit down, especially with how convenient all the music apps are, right? It's like, if you get going down a rabbit hole of one artist, they recommend the next, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, I remember that song," plummet into a playlist, but, like, fuck, you never do, right?
Yeah.
So and there's something about having that, like, physical disc too, you know? Um, a couple CDs that I can remember coming out, this was bringing up memories when we were talking about this, was, like, I can still remember hearing the songs for the very first time, was, West Side Connection. I
Bow
remember my
down.
buddy Oh, yeah, I remember my buddy bringing that CD back. They were in California or something like that, and he came back, he's like, "Boys, you gotta hear this," right? And fuck, man, we wore that CD out. And then there was a Mac 10 CD.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
I know that
and
one.
I mean,
It was very white on the cover.
yeah, yeah.
I know the CD in fact, I probably have it because like I had like the 3 stack tower, however many 100 fucking CDs from BMG, Columbia House, all the fucking subscription shit. And then like I offed so many, but I kept anything that was Ice Cube or Ice Cube related, I kept all those. And I actually just I thought they all went missing for the longest time between all my moves. And I swore my parents had the fucking box. Sure as shit, last year they show up, they're like, "Oh, we found one of your boxes." I'm like, "No fucking way." And of course, in that
Bingo.
box lied all that in my VHS, Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society. Of course, I have nothing that can play them, but
Right.
I got them. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and I mean, to some folks, like, say, if you grew up in, I don't know, LA, Chicago, New York, like, this might not sound like a big deal, but, like, for me in a town of 2,500 people, where, like, you had to wait. I mean, shit, CDs would be released for a year and we still wouldn't have them, you know?
What'd you
This was
have
a
over there,
big
like Music World?
dude, we didn't have any. There was a fucking the only place you could buy CDs was like the Petro Canada gas station, which has fucking Patsy Cline, Reba, and and then there was another little like jerkwater store called Dave's Book Bar. Like we didn't have none of that shit.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was just like those like gas station type spin fucking things, with I don't know, maybe
Carousels,
30
yeah.
CDs in them, you know what I mean? That's all we had locally.
Oh, man, that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you not,
Like we
like, lie about your age and sign up for Columbia House and stuff?
uh why didn't that work? Fuck man, I mean
'Cause I remember being, like, 14, man, I got, like, Rex and Effect, fucking Rump Shaker and shit, and all these CDs, and then I'm like, "Fuck, now I gotta, like, actually buy them," right? Because it was, like, 10 CDs for a penny or a dollar, whatever the fuck it was,
yeah.
right? But you had to buy 10 at regular cost, but you'd wait for the deals, right? Because then they get you, "Okay, buy 3 and we'll give you 3 more free on top of that," or some you just, like, I got to go at that point to the post office, get a money order, like, because you had to do it all by mail because you didn't have a fucking credit card. You know what I mean? Even if you had a credit card, you would have had to fill out the form with the credit card number manually. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, what a shit show. But yeah, no, that's how I built my collection.
I do remember that stuff, but like I don't know. I'm thinking to myself like fuck, we must have had mail coming in on horseback or something,
But the thing
like
is,
it just
like those were good, but I don't think you were getting like ice cubes or stuff that was like really like you'd get normal parental advisory stuff. Although I think I did get like some Too Shorts and shit from I think BMG was a little bit more open, then all the Wu Tang stuff started coming out. And a lot of those were on there. But
okay. Speaking of Too Short, um, I did not know Too Short existed until I was 18.
oh man, see you were 18 listening to Blowjob Betty.
Dude, it's when I moved to Lethbridge and I met all those dudes with the fox bodies and my buddy Pete with the black GT's like, dude, listen to this. I'm like, who the fuck is this? He's like, you don't know who Too Short is? I'm like, no, I've never heard of this before.
It was crazy. He had so many fucking albums too. Um,
Yeah. He
fuck, who
didn't
was the
suck somebody's dick. You know what I mean? Like, because he is good. Like he
yeah.
is there's no reason that he shouldn't not be more known type thing
Yeah, no, for
or more
sure.
famous.
Um, yeah, man, fuck yeah, the whole CD thing, right? And just like the wait and the anticipation, and it's like, oh, what tracks? Because obviously you'd hear like there'd be a music video that got released or whatever it might be. Which, man, I did that. Like I used to do from music video to cassette tape, right, when I was young, and then once the mini disc thing came out, I would actually grab stuff off like Much Music or whatever, which is Canadian MTV,
Yeah.
and then load that directly onto whatever I had to be able to play it or burn the CD. Um, yeah, it's crazy what we would do just for music, and now it's like, and I even wonder, right? Like, how do they get these stats? How are artists still making the money that they're making? Um, I
I don't
get
know,
it.
man.
Like, if you think about the cost, right, of making a CD, printing all those covers, all the cases. distribution, marketing, how many are getting sold, how many didn't get sold, get like who knows where they ended up or doing. Now it's just sort of like it's out there, but like do all those Spotify subscriptions and Apple Music and stuff like do the pennies add
Yeah,
up that much? I don't know. It's just weird.
I I agree, man. I think about this quite often too. Like I think in some senses it's probably easier to make money as a music artist because now it's just all calculated electronically, right? Like, your song got this many streams and you're going to get like so many fractions of a penny for every listen or however the fuck that works, right? Versus like you say like actual hard copy like you sold this many records types thing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear someone break the math down on that, but I don't know how it all works. And I mean, yeah, like is this kind of like if you were to cross compare it with say current day high level sports players versus music artists, like if you rewind the clock 20 years ago, like were those people just like the high end sports players making less money like due to whatever inflation and all the shit, right? Money went further back then. Are they making more money now? Or are they making less money due to all these changes? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, it's weird, man. Makes you think.
It is.
I want
Yeah.
a how it's made episode to explain this for me.
Oh, yeah, totally. But I know, like, you think about, some of these artists that stand out to me. I mean, it's typically like the rappers out of like California and New York, right? And you think like, fuck, like the stories they must be able to tell about like trying to get a track cut, trying to get it on some sort of like medium that they could pass it along to somebody else, get it heard, whatever. Whereas like now, you know, just go through the search page of Instagram, you're going to come across somebody that's trying to blast out a song of some sort. And like some people actually make it and make it big. I mean, there's
Mm.
the wife was telling me about somebody that um recently here like literally have kind of brought themselves to the top of the charts through Spotify, and they got no manager, they got no um record label, you know what I mean? They got
Yeah,
none of that stuff.
it's pure independent. Well, if you watched any of the Wu-Tang series, or
I
you guys
haven't,
have
no.
that's kind of interesting, like in the early days of it and the formation. I think the thing that impresses me the most about that whole group was whether whatever 9 members or however many members it ended up being or started whatever to actually just get that many dudes together in a studio to put tracks together is a feat in itself.
Yeah.
Um, but that story is pretty cool. And then the other one that I think I told you offline, the Shine documentary.
Oh no, you didn't tell me about this one.
So Shine, like the rapper as we know him, right? So he was kind of famous because he did that album while he was locked up in jail. But the reason why he went to jail was with that whole P. Diddy shooting drama shit that happened in a nightclub with J Lo.
Right.
And so I guess what the most interesting part, and I forget what island, he's from the Caribbean somewhere. So he ended up in New York and same thing, like started rapping and got found, and obviously P. Diddy picked him up and this and that. And the next thing, um, got out of jail and then went to Israel, becomes a Jew,
Oh,
um, completely changes like his direction. He tries to rap again, but it's not the same. He pretty much sucked. Ended up going back to his home country, and I want to say now he's like running for prime minister.
really?
So from rapper like shot on the streets in New York and fucking gang related rap music and getting locked up for a shooting, it's all come out now that he took the fall for P. Diddy. Um, and yeah, now to possibly to be the prime minister of his country.
Holy shit.
Yeah, super
That's
cool
wild.
story. Yeah, it's worth checking out.
Huh. Okay. This reminds me of something I've come across. I would struggle to bring it up again, but I have come across this. Have you seen anything on some of these, I mean, for whatever it's worth, conspiracy theories surrounding Snoop Dogg bringing out who people are thinking, like during one of his live concerts, is Tupac?
Um, what do you mean he's bringing him out during concerts? Like
Like
as
there's
like
this guy, yeah, there's a fucking human dude that comes
like
out
in a
and
backup
like,
dancer type thing or doing something?
yep, but he like got a mic, he's rapping and it's like staggering. Well, there is zoomed in video and it's like I want to say he might even have a beard, like, so there's some differences. But like to hear this guy whatever do his thing, you're like, huh. Like I could see where people are seeing this.
So this
It's
is a
pretty
recent
wild.
thing?
Well, yeah, I want to say I it kind of shot across my bow maybe 4 6 weeks ago, something like that.
Oh, shit. Well, I'll have
Yeah.
to look into that. It's always a
Well,
conspiracy that's, it's one of those
yeah.
ones you like to believe.
Well, totally, right? Um, well, and I mean, that's another thing, and maybe I'm just not tuned into the current day. Like, I never even actually really hear my kids talking much about this, and my oldest is 14, so I mean, she'd be in that age group where like we were kind of hearing about this stuff, even especially being Canadians, right? Like we were hearing about stuff in New York and California and Vegas and all these places that shit was technically going down, but my kids don't really talk much about it either. So I don't know, maybe there's not as much of it, but when we were kids, right? Like this was like big fucking news. Like, it was the buzz of a high school if something was going on, somebody shot at somebody, whatever, right?
I
That whole
still
back and
actually in
forth.
that box with all the, CDs and stuff actually is my Source magazine, the one where when Tupac was killed, and it's,
Right.
like, just a black like, him on the cover, it's all black and dark looking, but, yeah, no, like,
Yeah.
I held on to that stuff, like, that was a huge well, whatever, Nirvana fucking offing himself, right? And
Yep.
then Tupac
He's
and Biggie and, like, all this shit, man.
well, and that's the funny thing about all those like 90s artists is like there's a conspiracy theory surrounding every fucking one of those people, right? Like,
Yeah,
uh yeah, shit. What's his name there? Nirvana.
Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain. Yeah. That haywire blonde that he was hanging out with was behind it. And then there was the I don't know, it goes on, right? But now to hear I don't know, if you haven't in a while, like go back and listen to some of those music like some of that music and you go like, Jesus, like what a shame to lose these people, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. So the video that I saw of this dude that people are claiming is Tupac, like to hear him like standing out there really ripping on it, you're like, oh, like it takes you back instantaneously. You get that exact same feeling. Pick whatever Tupac song that you knew and love, right?
Right.
There's probably more than one. Um, and then you hear this and you're like, holy fuck, dude. Like this could be him.
Huh.
Like
Yeah, I'm
that
gonna look
quick,
into this.
fast, hard hitting, like the Tupac that we all know, you know?
Yeah.
This guy nails that.
Huh. Yeah, I'm gonna look into that. Man, so did you watch the documentary on the Fire Festival?
Nope, I haven't seen that either. Fuck, I'm out of the loop.
Okay.
Out of the
So
loop.
you gotta look this up, this Fire Festival
Oh,
documentary. It was
okay, hold
that
on.
festival that never
I think
happened,
I have.
okay? And it
These
was
kids
like
cooked up this idea on an island?
exactly.
Yeah, I have seen that. Okay, yeah.
Okay. So you know how it flopped and, like, pretty much it turned into the biggest scam or whatever?
Yeah.
He's doing Fire Festival 2 off some island off Mexico.
Come on.
I just heard it on the radio today. I meant to like look it up and like actually see what the fuck's going on. But apparently, same guy organizing the same thing. And I think it's like end of April or beginning of May or something. So I'm
What?
curious. I need to look.
Dude, this
And it's
really boggles
like,
me.
and how do people, you know what I mean? It's just amazing how your name can be absolute mud
Yeah,
and you can recover from it's like the whole good news is bad news thing. I've never fucking understood it.
this really bends my head, dude. And I mean, I'll speak for myself. I think it's safe. Like, I know you well enough to know that you would agree with me on all this. So I'll kind of speak for both of us. Like, for two people that, like, even in this pod tonight, like we're talking about spring rates and whatever, and we're going like, oh, listen, all you engineers out there, don't rape us over the cold. Like, for two people that are so concerned about providing, the best information possible, or at least prefacing it by saying, hey, we don't know what we're talking about here, but this is kind of how our brains work, whatever. Then to your point, you've got these complete asshats that fuck people over for massive amounts of money, right? Like fucking Jake Paul, you know?
Yeah.
Like total, like that's a carbon copy of this. Like it's just all bullshit. And these guys somehow find the next best thing and they pick up wherever they left. How the fuck is that guy getting any radio time? Like, how does that radio announcer not go, hey, remember that dickhead that scammed all you poor bastards? He's at her again.
Well, they kind of said it not in those words, right? They were just like, oh, I forget the guy's name. We're like, oh, so and so, he's organizing Fire Festival too, and let's hope it happens type deal. You know what I
Wow.
mean? But um like, even as an artist, like, I'm curious because I just heard it and I meant to look it up. I didn't have time, but like, it's like, okay, who's, he guaranteeing that's going to be there? And is it the same? Because I remember it was like everything was supposed to be through that bracelet, right? And you're supposed to preload the
Yep.
bracelet with a bunch of money so you could get your drinks and get your food and get all this stuff. And like, don't get me wrong, the concept was
Oh,
amazing.
totally.
But then, yeah, like going just to absolute garbage. Like, what were those like little shelters, like war shelters or something that they put up, right? Like as tents or fuck.
Oh, I know. Like, it make a hostel in fucking Costa Rica look real good,
Yeah,
like, and you're expecting this like white tented fucking beautiful white sand, clear water,
yeah,
like, yeah, and people got off the plane, they're like, "What the shit is this?" You know? Like,
yeah.
that was I mean, that was quite a few years ago now, hey? I wanna say that was like it was pre-COVID for sure,
Yeah, it was right pre-COVID. Like I think it was supposed to be like 2019 or something like that. Because I think the documentary came out during COVID, if I remember right, or very
right.
close to it.
Holy shit, hey? Yeah,
Yeah.
because that was the other thing, he guaranteed, I don't know, dead mouse or you know what I mean? Like, it was all kinda surrounding rave type shit,
Yeah, and he had
right?
like a lot of like influential people, right? Like post, I think it was like an orange square or whatever it was on their social media, right? To like grab
Right.
people's attention and influence people to want to go. Yeah, man, fuck, unreal.
I know, like, how do these people resurface? You think that guy would be, like, in jail or something, he got sued so bad he had to just go do jail time.
Oh,
Like, what the fuck?
yeah, it's
It's
unreal.
I mean, I guess it just goes to show you, right? Like, just
And
keep
here's
killing and
me worried about this whole waffle of the shit box and like
yeah.
how it's only going to take one fucking asshole to be like, oh, well, he doesn't have a fucking gambling or gaming commission fucking certification. And it's like, okay, well, because there's going to be that one asshole that's going to fucking take me down and I'll never be able to bounce back from that. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, we'll throw it on the old bring a trailer, which will probably be up next week.
Oh, she's
Yeah.
she's going
All I'm gonna do, man, I'm gonna let it fly. Fucking no reserve. It is what it is. Whatever. It goes for fucking 5,000, goes for 50,000. It is what it is.
Let her eat.
I just hope it goes in the right hands. You know what I mean? But like, it's time.
That's the thing with that car, right? I mean, it's kind of the I don't know, the it's the kid that whatever screwed everything up, but like had it still you knew had it in them to like do something with themselves. I mean,
Yeah.
because again, like I've said this a trillion times, but like that car was destined to be fucking topsoil, you know, which
Yeah.
still melts my mind that that thing had the heart of a lion under the well, the hood wasn't even on it when you got it, right? It
No.
was laying in the fucking trees. But anyway, like hypothetically, under the hood, the heart of a lion with like no oil staining on it. I mean, we've taken stabs at how many miles we thought were on it, but like not many, you know,
No.
1,000, 1,500, maybe.
Yeah.
Unbelievable that car.
No, it is, man. And like as much as I mean, it's cool or whatever. Um, I think someone would really enjoy it. Like it needs somebody that doesn't have 10 other fucking cars. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Just wants to have fun. Like Foxidized, like the guy like throws his golf clubs in the back and pulls up to the country club and loves all the looks he gets in it, he says. So um
You know, I here's the thing on that though, buddy. I know I was just trying to picture like who would be best suited for this thing. I gotta think this would be like the high school kid's dream that like, everybody with, their dad that's got too much money that's bought him a fucking brand new Chevy or whatever is going to eat this kid alive for lunch, but he's going to show up with the fucking tunes blaring and that guy is getting some ass. Like guaranteed. If you pull up to a party in that car, you're getting laid.
yeah. Oh man, it's
For
got the
sure.
sex lights in it. You know what I mean?
Fucking
It's
right,
oh yeah.
it does.
It's the red
Yeah,
light district on wheels.
yeah, yeah, like, if you're not getting laid, you're getting a real good handy on the way home. Like, that car's got that in it.
Oh,
I think that's the answer for that car, right? Is just a kid that's gonna whatever. Because I mean, it literally gives you every piece of awesomeness that comes from a Fox body. It's
yeah.
loud, it's obnoxious, it's low, it's got nuts, like, it'll move.
Yeah.
Um inside, licking a promise. It's clean, you know? Like, yeah, I don't know. I like it's kind of I don't know, the maybe this is a step too far, but like the Ken Block, you know what I mean? Like it's outrageous
Yeah. Well,
of
and
cars.
I think and there was other people that have done like patina or this weird whatever rat rod style fox stuff, but yeah, this one it did I think change many people's it got a lot of attention, which I think did have a genuine impact on what some wheels and some stance and what I mean, some of the
Yeah,
basics can do and just stop worrying about the nice paint stuff. And um I mean, as nice as it'd be to keep everything, it's just what I mean, can build another one. They're all fun. Like Foxidized, I have more seat time probably overall and or I did in Foxidized than I did the shitbox. Like there was something about I don't know. And I actually had that car. Well, didn't really have a top. It did sort of in the end because Stalker donated its old top to it, but that was actually convertible that I cruised with the top down.
yep, yeah. Yeah, there really truly is something to be said about, even if you've got your dream car that say you bought brand new, whatever, like, there's something to be said about something along the same lines as your dream car that you just don't really like you still care about, but definitely not as much as
Yeah.
the one you've always had. Like everything. We've said this a million times, but like working on it, you just fucking tools are on the fender. I mean, you just whatever, right? And hell, even if it's got a couple gremlins, you're not so stressed out about it, right? But when you got that immaculate paint, whatever, like, oh, I just heard, did you hear that squeak? Did you hear that rattle? Did you like, fuck, you know?
Yeah.
This thing's such a stress reliever, you know? You don't give a shit if you miss a shift in it and fucking float the valves. Like it loves it. It wants more of it, you know?
Oh,
It's the booty call. That's what it
yeah.
is. That's that car. Like, you know, you don't lose any sleep over it.
Oh, it's true, man. Yeah, I'm interested to see what it'll do. Um, I have an idea, but yeah, we'll see what the at the end of the day, it's worth what someone's willing to pay. And I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of shit out there on well, whatever, bring a trailer and meek 'em and whatever. And it's weird, right? Some stuff sells for way more than you think it should, and then some things sell for you're like, damn, that was more than a steal. So
Yeah. It's
uh
kind of it's kind of one of the shitty parts about, I guess, I don't know, the situation we're in, right? Because if we were, I don't know, two dudes on Motor Trend making fucking, you know, more money than you knew what to do with and whatever else, like, how cool would it be to, I don't know, take that car buzzing around the country and try to find that kid, right? That's like busting his ass, washing dishes at night, working on his car, fucking, walking to school so he can whatever, save some gas money and get that car and like just go, hey man, like you need this car, right? And
yeah,
make a whole whatever, tell that story. I mean, that's who deserves that car, you know? Um, because I don't know, like I'm trying to like put myself in those shoes, like
you
when
know
we
who
were.
else I could see in that car is fucking Glenn Robitaille.
Oh, totally. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
100%.
Like just drift fucking or whatever route, like just go out, fucking have a good time, probably smash a beer or two in between, have a good time
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man,
But
just
that's the
somebody
thing.
just like no fucks, you know what I mean? And just enjoy it.
Well, and that's the thing, because like for us, like that's, I guess, the shit box's ideal buyer, because we're not those fucking Motor Trend superstars that, you know, whatever, fucking money's falling out of your pockets. But, and I don't know. I've heard stories about those guys. I don't think they're killing it either. But anyway, you get my idea. Um, so yeah, like as the sellers, like that's your perfect client. But the perfect owner for that car is the kid that's
Yeah.
just searching for that first blowy. Like I need to take this thing to my prom and you know what I mean? Fucking do a few donuts in the parking lot. Crank the tunes.
Absolutely. So, yeah, man, we'll see what she does and then figure out the next course of action. It sucks, man. A raffle would have been actually really good. Just I couldn't everything that I tried to come up with and try and build around it. Just it didn't make sense, man. Just for I guess trying to appease. I know a lot of people do it, right? Well,
Yeah.
we both know a lot of people that do it, but at the same time, is it worth
The
the shit in
potential.
the end? Not so much.
Yeah. I'm hoping that the new administration, as they kind of whatever work their way through the hot fires and get down to the cooler ones, I'm hoping that things like this are no longer the issue that they currently are, because those like this raffle idea is absolutely brilliant. And I'm not talking just shitbox related. I'm talking like
Yeah,
anyone that wants to sell anything. It is fucking amazing, especially when it comes to cars. Because, you know, well, you're in for whatever it is, 100, 200, like minor amounts of money individually. So when that car shows up on your doorstep and the seller or the raffler forgot to mention, the rock chip, it's like $200 car. You know what I mean? What are you going to do? But
Exactly.
I know, because the people that we got running the world, everybody wants to take their fucking pound of flesh, right? And then it leaves all of the rest of us minions to just whatever, kowtow to the fucking overlords, right? Like it's complete horseshit. Like, you know,
Yeah. No, it is,
drives
man.
me nuts. Cause yeah, especially when it comes to like especially a car like that, actually. Like that car is a really good example of a raffle car because, for the two of us, like the blood, sweat, and tears is no joke. Like, go to our fucking YouTube channels. You know what I mean? Like, none of this is made up. Um, and this kind of builds off of that video that, well, it went real well for Gearhead, like from a viewership standpoint, but the guy was in the comments on the fucking every minute, just
Yeah.
getting eaten alive, right? And yeah, it's like, but it's the truth, like if this raffle scene was legit and nobody had to worry about getting hit by the IRS or the CRA or whatever, all of a sudden, folks that enjoy working on stuff, it starts to make sense again. Like you can kind of
Yeah.
start to recoup some of your costs. And it's because of that shared community style of buy.
Yeah. Somebody just needs to open like some nonprofit org specific for the foxbody community that can like drive it all legally. Because that'd be like um a good way, right? Because then you could run it through something that's a structured and legal
Mhm.
whatever entity, and that individual could, maybe that's an idea. Just
Well,
there's a
yeah.
lot of fucking red tape around it, right? So that's the only thing, and you want to make sure you got some charities and everything else involved. But um, yeah, time.
Yeah. Well, dude, and I mean, that's the saddest part about, in a lot of ways, about the structure of the world we live in currently. Like we really shouldn't have to think as hard as we do about, I don't know, selling a fucking black interior or whatever, right, for cash. And then it's like, well, I mean, I'm trying to run a business here and whatever. Like, come on, it's just
Yeah,
everybody gets taxed to the fucking hilt. And I don't know. It really makes for a, I don't know. We all walk around kind of shoulder checking all the time, right? And you shouldn't have to. Like you want to sell a fucking hubcap, sell a hubcap. Like fuck off. You'll all get your tax out of me when I go buy a case of beer at the store.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's just, things are going way too far. I mean, I get it. Like, if you're a business on eBay, that's one thing. If you're some average Joe just trying to sell off a couple fucking comic books and some hockey cards that you had or whatever, like, everything's now tied right into your bank account. It all gets reported. You're getting taxed, whatever. And like, tax was paid on that
Oh,
or on these items probably 10 times over. You know what I mean? And, anyways, fuck.
it's so true. And man, I've always said, like, and this goes for anything in life, like if you, I don't know, let's compare this to, say, uh going out for dinner, right? You go out for dinner and let's say there's no prices on the menu. You order whatever it is you're going to eat, and like more, like too much food comes, and it's every single bite of it's just a party in your mouth, right? And then the bill shows up and it's, I don't know, this is all going to be like area dependent. In Canada, that'd probably be $1,000 meal. But anywhere else, like 152, like
Yeah.
let's just all agree upon the fact that it's an air quote expensive meal. You'd be like, that was worth it. You know what I mean? Like I got my money's worth. Everyone had a great time. The service was unreal, on and on and on. So that, like, I have no problem paying for that. And I also don't have any problem paying for paved roads and ambulance service and, you know, like all these things. But it's when you feel like you're not getting what your money goes towards. Like you're not getting your money's worth. And that's where everyone goes, "Well, what the fuck are we paying for?" You know, like I did so anyway, like I said, back to the current, at least American administration, and this whole like fucking Elon, he is really kicking over some rocks these days, right?
Yeah.
And it I mean, for people like us that question things and whatever, it's really no surprise. We're like, oh no shit, right? Like, really? They were fucking driving down the road with the windows open, just throwing bags of cash out. No kidding. They have they've only had a couple weeks, man. And if any of these numbers that they're speaking of are true, which I would like to think they are, um, people are now starting to wake up just how badly fucked we're getting. And as that unfolds, and you know, they got 3.9 years in front of them. Yeah, I'm hoping that this will mean a lot of this stuff just gets, hey, everybody fucking live their own life. We're going to shrink everything down. No one needs to be told what to do unless you're a complete asshole, right? Like,
Yeah.
then we'll deal with you. But yeah, just go back to living your fucking life, you know? Stay out of your
Well,
hair.
it's true, man. Um, don't you have like provincial elections coming up?
Oh, pal. There is yeah, so what the only thing that that previous dickhead did that was good for Canada is he kind of reminded everyone that Canada was still here, right? But he is forever remembered as like the biggest POS on the face of planet Earth. I say this to the wife quite often. I'm like, can you imagine like there is going to be I don't know, 5, 6, 10 generations beyond this asshole and his kids where they get spit on the streets. Like, you know, you were that much of an asshole that you have fucked up the rest of the lineage that comes behind you. But anyway, yeah, so Numbnuts has stepped down, air quote step down. He's still in power till they pick somebody new. And they're having a internal election for the same bullshit party that he belongs to pick a new leader. Now, the creek that they all come from does not run very deep, as you can imagine, right? Like the fucking gene pool is pretty shallow.
Yeah.
Um, the front runner that everyone, or at least the news is telling everyone seems to be the front runner. I mean, this guy is the old guy with a tiny little 10 up beside it, like just absolute fucking idiot, you know? Um, so it's going to be interesting to see. There's some assumptions out there that if this guy gets in, technically, if all things were equal and we were operating in a black and white situation, he would only have about 10 months and then there would be a federal election and you know, may the best person win, right?
Yeah.
But there is a theory out there, which based on what I've seen of this guy, I wouldn't put it past him, that he calls some sort of emergency, which all of a sudden, hey, we can't have an election because we're in the middle of an emergency, right? And this guy just whatever solidifies his seat for however fucking long he wants and just keeps driving poor old Canada right into the ground.
So because the douchebag resigned,
Yeah,
so you're saying they want to put like an interim dude in place to get to the October election. At least that's what
correct.
should happen.
Uh-huh.
But instead, if this guy gets in temporarily, then he'll find a way to, I guess, make that more permanent.
Yeah, whatever they call it, prorogue parliament or whatever. Because right now it actually is prorogued or whatever, where like they're not sitting, they're not questioning, they're not arguing over things, they're not whatever.
So, I heard the bit of, you and Bill, and you guys were talking about the anthem at the hockey game, which Bill had not heard,
Yeah.
and we were talking about the booing and everything else. Um, I don't get it. I do not understand how a country that's in the position that you're physically in right now can be more concerned and upset about another country's statements towards them versus cleaning out their own fucking backyard.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? And if you are Canadian, and if you're pissed off at America, shake your fucking head. Like,
It's
it's
so
I just it baffles me, and like I get the snippets, right? Like there was some bullshit article that Brittany's mom sent me that said, "Oh, all Canadians are canceling their trips to the US. It's going to be an
yeah.
economic disaster." And I'm like, there's more people in the state of California than all of Canada put together. So if all of fucking California decided not to fucking visit the rest of the US would probably be quite happy and they're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
So like it just and it's like, oh well, the exchange rate. I'm like, the exchange rate's been the same since fucking like last September. This has
Mm.
nothing to do with fucking Trump. Like, yeah, there was a little bit of spike here and there. It lasted like 3 days. But it's I don't get it, man. It's like Canada's been living in this like misery loves company mentality of let's just bitch and complain about how shitty the fucking government is. And then it's like we know the government's going to change, but we don't want to do anything about it. Oh, well, let's look at these guys over here and create more fucking misery. It's fucking so toxic. It's disgusting.
Yeah. Buddy, I mean it's just the best way I can sum it up for everyone is it's just a whole bunch of lemmings all running for the same cliff. And I shouldn't say that. Like in my heart of hearts, and based on what I seen, whatever that was now, 3 or 4 years ago when the whole trucker convoy thing went on, I really truly don't believe that the majority of Canadians are represented by one, the people that boo the anthem, or two, the people that are front and center on the 6 o'clock news going, we're canceling our trip to fucking Disneyland, right? Like, because to your point, it's like, ooh, right? Like, holy shit. Like, you're not going to bring down your fucking
And
Canadian pesos and buy
and
some Mickey ears.
here's the craziest thing. We have had more Canadian interaction this year and going into like the next 2 months than probably the past 2 years combined. As far as I'm concerned, it has not stopped a single fucking soul from traveling. Um, the only person that I can speak of is my cousin Jeff. He was a little he's like, "Oh, I'm still going to go down for Woodward and stuff, but like I get it. The tariffs directly, like he's in the steel business, he's on a border town. There's a
Yeah.
lot of like implications there that are a little uneasy. Like even me, I'm pissed, right? Like these tariffs impact my importation of Godzilla motors, um, which is not, you know what I mean? Just adding 25% pretty much kills any
Yeah.
part of that business that there is. But um, at the same time, I can't be mad about it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like
This
and
is the thing, pal.
it'll fix itself. But yeah, man, the whole fucking oh, we're gonna put these tariffs on, and then Canada's like, oh, we're gonna stop selling Jack Daniels or whatever in the liquor stores, and it's like, come on, really? I'm like,
I know.
China is
It
the number one importer of Jack Daniels, and Canada is the number one drinker of Weisers. You think Jack Daniels and whatever else whiskey in the states is gonna come on?
it's drops in the bucket. And I
Yeah,
mean, so the okay, anyone that's listened to me on here or seen my YouTube videos, I mean, I think I can safely say you've got a good enough appreciation of who I am, how much I know. I don't have any insider info. I do kick over rocks and I look underneath and I've got a pretty decent filter when it comes to information. So with all that being said, the issue that I see being that's kind of causing all of this ruckus is Canada has not paid its fair share of dues as far as NATO is concerned ever. Like since the agreement started in whatever year that was, we have always paid less than our share. Okay. And Trump, who I've got a pretty good understanding of, I can say honestly, I don't think I truly did during his first presidency, right? Because I mean, anyone with a level head can, watch the guy talk and go like, "Oh, like what? Where is he even going with this?" And then you got these like curveballs that come in from fucking outfield and well, during his second go around, now I think I understand the guy and he is a lot more intelligent than I think a lot of people, at least the mainstream media want to give him credit for because he'll just throw those curveballs in and it's just a way of like having somebody
Stir in the
kind of
pot
like
and make you think.
totally, man, right? It's like you're kind of mid hypnosis and then it's like whoa 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 whoa. You know that meme of fucking Leonardo DiCaprio? Yeah. Oh, wait, what was that? Right? Like
Yeah.
that's a Trump curveball, right? So
Well, he's
and
borderline comedian too.
totally. I think, if you were to have a beer with the guy, yeah, he'd probably fucking have you in stitches.
Yeah.
So anyway, he goes, "Hey, listen, Canada's like immigration policies and this whole fentanyl thing, like it's out of control." And that fentanyl side of things may be a little bit one of these curveballs of Trump's because there is some thoughts and theories that not a lot of containers that hit the West Coast or the East Coast, like I'm talking less than 1% of them are scanned and or checked. So I think there's kind of a black market curveball in there that I'm sure the higher ups of this country are probably involved with. Um, didn't hear that from me, but anyway, and Canada is just a quick little way of going, yeah, we're going to send this shit to you guys, and then you send it south and do
Well,
whatever you will with it.
it's been, and I can even speak of this personally. Canada does not check what it exports.
Right. Especially if that bill of lading says whatever, Ohio, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just a
Like,
quick stop and a trailer switch.
yeah, they do not give a shit. And we've seen it, right? There was that whole the guy who had the AirPod in his truck that was stolen, sent to a railway.
Mm,
Police couldn't intervene on the railway because the railway is like its own fucking territory. And then, I think a month later, the guy tracked it all the way and ended up in Dubai for sale in a car lot.
yep.
And there was nothing that could be done. Like it was
Yeah.
um same thing, and I can speak firsthand on my Lightning, right? My Lightning I sent to Dubai. Um it was over there, it got sold twice. Then when I brought it to the US, I ended up, getting the truck back, sent it to the US. Lewis actually titled it for me in Florida. When it arrived, um, come to find out, when I ran a used vehicle package on it, it was still titled in my name, no differently. I literally filed for a lost ownership or lost title, and they gave me a new number plate, bolted it on the truck, and it was like it never left.
Yeah. The
Right?
car's been on
Versus,
oceans
yeah,
and no one
and
knew.
different multiple owners.
You're right.
Versus you try and bring a vehicle or a vehicle to exit out of the US, that vehicle's title is not going anywhere until US Customs has looked at the VIN, made sure there's no outstanding liens, that it hasn't been stolen or whatever else, and it needs a stamp or nobody's going to touch it,
Yeah.
which is, goes along with the bill of lading and everything else. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's loopholes in whatever activity that's going out of the US as well, but it's not like Canada where it's literally just here you go. And think about all those vehicles that were financed from dealerships, because that's another thing that makes no sense, right? Like you buy a new car, you technically don't own that car, but you still have an ownership that says that you own it. And it's not Like another country isn't going to care about a lien if you let it go. Like it shouldn't be allowed to leave, period. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's not yours. So I get it. And if it's on the container scale, of all the shit I've ever imported into Canada, I've never had intensive x-ray scans or additional scans going into the containers. I can tell you 75% of shit that I have sent to the US, vehicles and containers, personal goods and containers, I had to pay the $500-$600 fucking extra scanning fees because they do it, especially, coming from, in my case, a lot of it was from the Middle East.
Hmm.
um yeah, man, no, I can 100% see all that.
Yep. Yeah. So, like I say, I think the fentanyl thing, because the mainstream would allow you to believe that, like, oh, like we're only 30, 40 million people, and like how much of this fentanyl could we be producing, right? And it's like, meanwhile, yeah, the
I'm
ports
pretty
are just
sure the last 3 seasons, of Intervention have all been filmed in Canada.
right. Yeah.
Like, it used to
Yeah.
be Atlanta, Detroit, you know, Chicago, fucking wherever, like, random bad neighborhood areas, but I swear to God, like, the past 3 seasons, 'cause me and Britt, we watched that, and they've all been Canada.
Yeah.
Um And the other thing that just kind of is like the nail in the coffin with the immigration policy is like, yeah, Canada hands out fucking passports to everybody. And the
And
biggest
money.
thing too that dickhead did, um, was allowing non-residents to vote.
Yeah. Well,
Because
the
let
same
me tell
thing.
you, there's bucket loads of Canadian passport holders out there that will probably never step a foot back in Canada that will vote to make sure that their families that don't have the passport yet are going to be able to get the ride over there. And we see it every time I go for VIN validation or inspections and stuff. Let me tell you, man, there's a lot of East Asian with Ontario plates, which is, and Canada's just the loophole. It's the temporary holding spot. Then they get that. Then they file for um, whatever visa or application that they're doing, um, to get into the US.
Hmm. Yeah.
But you know what really grinds my gears? Because I'll give you one on the US.
Yeah.
This 90-day fiance bullshit. So
Okay.
I've complained about it before, right? Because it's like some dickhead goes on a holiday somewhere and thinks that they fall fucking madly in love with someone from another country because they were in lust or they were drunk off fucking pina coladas or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, just because they get engaged, they get to bring this person over. They get 90 days of whatever, they get married, and then green cards get fucking sent out to everybody, and everybody's happy until they're unhappy and they get fucking divorced, but the people with the green cards win.
Yep.
Whatever. The latest, there's a couple married for however many years, 2 kids together. Apparently, they go to Mexico and find some chick that they want to become a throuple.
Oh,
And
sister
this is,
wife.
yeah, and this is like legit on, right? TV, Discovery, TLC, whatever the fuck 90 Days filmed on. And guys, don't judge me. My wife watches the shit, but you get pulled into this stuff, right? So
Happy wife, happy life. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so these people are actively discussing how they are going to legally separate and divorce so that way the dude can then propose to the other woman to be able to legally bring her into the US. And like, I sit here literally wanting to throw shit at the fucking TV, aka the fucking US border security and immigration policies, because it's like just because these fucking citizens think they find love, you're allowing them to bring these randoms in, while here I am wanting to start a business, run a business, pay fucking taxes, create jobs in your country. And I go through like 2 years, 3 years probably in total just to get a 5 year permit. Like, it doesn't fucking make
Yeah.
sense.
No, it's true, bud, and I think this is where I mean, all of us are hopeful that this new administration should and could make some sense of this. Um, but sorry, not to backtrack, but just to kind of spin back to this back and forth between Canada and the United States. So, like I say, I think there is some legitimacy to these curveballs that Trump's throwing, but the biggest one that he isn't talking about, but is like a major thing, is you're supposed to. So, as per the NATO treaty, you're supposed to contribute 2% of your gross domestic product to your own military, and that is kind of your pay to play in order to be part of NATO. And the whole idea, at least this, I don't know this for sure, but I mean, this is the logic of it, is if and when hell breaks loose to one of the NATO countries, every one of these countries is armed and ready to help the next one out, right? It's
Right.
kind of an all for one and one for all type scenario. Well, anyway, since the beginning of this treaty, Canada's never contributed 2% of its GDP, ever. And back when Trump was last in power, he leaned in on this. And Canada's like, oh shit, don't worry. We're going to get to it like 15 or 20 years from now, the standard issue Canadian fucking answer, because we just can't afford to do it. But meanwhile, we can afford to throw money towards, whatever, right? Trans fucking grasshoppers in fucking Zimbabwe. You know what I mean? Like all these outrageous fucking and all this, pretty much all the
All
stuff that
these, the trans surgeries are they're covered in Canada, aren't they?
there's I've heard. Yeah. So yeah,
Meanwhile, people are
like
dying of
all the
cancer. But,
totally right.
sew me on a fucking penis, please. Like,
Yeah,
what the fuck?
make it all make sense, right?
Yeah,
I mean, and there's just so many different angles of this, but anyway, that's kind of the underlying tone that I understand as being Trump's like kind of thing that he's saying without saying, right? And now he's recently come out and said, "Hey, you know what? Like just because of the landscape of the earth and like the potential threats and this that and the other thing, 2% is probably not enough. We should be 5." And meanwhile, Canada's making fucking plans to reach 2% by like 2045. It's like, well, how the fuck are we ever going to make 5%? Right? Especially when we're
yeah,
pissing money out our ass in every other direction. So, the bottom line, dude, and I mean, this kind of sums up even a lot of the things you said, is it's like, can we just get some adults in the room and bring logic back to the table? Like, that's what everyone is begging for. Maybe not everyone. There's 1% of wingnuts out there that buy into this bullshit. But the vast majority of us are just like, please, can we have some logic? Like, just make it all make sense? And
yeah,
here's the other side of this. I was I, I was fairly like political and um, I don't know. I bit my tongue when I was bringing that whole thing up with Bill, but like I was absolutely like disgusted. I was beyond myself that something like that would take place. Like unless we're talking like Hiroshima level like nuclear like one country bombed another, maybe then I could see like, hey, you know what? Let's do something as serious as boo the national anthem. But like, I don't think any of these simpletons that were behind the booing have any idea of the things that I just said at all. And if
yeah.
they did, I would like to think they would all go like, really? Like, oh my God, I wish I could take that back. Because it, and the worst part about all this is we, i.e., like the people, the taxpayers, the minions, like we have no say over any of this shit, right? We just fucking go to work and pay our taxes and do our thing. And it's these upper echelon assholes that create this mess for us. And then the saddest part is they propagandize the shit that we hear. And therefore, like a bunch of lemmings running for the same cliff, we go, oh, yeah, these guys are the bad guys. We got to boo them. It's like, fuck you guys. Please think for yourself, you know? Like, just
Yeah.
go beyond the headline, like 4 sentences, and you'll know more and you'll think a little deeper about these things, you know?
Like that's it,
It
man. There's
just
just like there's no depth anymore. I don't think people
fuck.
understand the power of like flag culture. I mean, like values. Like there's just um like everything just seems like throwaway or just surface level or whatever. Like it's pretty
Yeah.
sad.
Oh, buddy. So sad, you know? Especially when you think of like I don't I'm not intelligent enough to like really truly sum up like the emotion or the feeling that I have surrounding all this, but I mean, whatever. I'll try. Like, you know, the United States is the United States. You know what I mean? They're 10 times bigger than Canada. They've always been big brother to Canada. And those of us that know and appreciate and are grateful for that, like really truly still are. Um, and to boo the hand that technically will look after you in a parking lot scrap is just fucking I can't even get there. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
just I'll never be able to get there, you know? But
Well, again,
meanwhile,
to the point where if there should be any booing, should be Canadians against their own anthem right now.
100%. Yeah. Which
Like,
that in itself is interesting, pal. And I mean, this will kind of bring me more towards like where I ultimately wanted to go with this is like, you know, so the question is like, would Canadians booing their own anthem make any sense? Like,
it's sort of like
and
taking the knee, right?
kind of
Like it
is, right? And like the weird part about this is, you kind of got to break it down. Like, do like I still love the anthem and I love the fact that I was born here, but like the Canada that I know and love is different than the Canada that I currently exist in. And by booing the anthem, you're kind of well, you're booing a lot of things. You're booing veterans, you're booing, people that made your life what it is and whatever. But to your point, like, you know, you just want to boo the guy, like that fucking piece of shit that
well,
the
hey,
head of the state.
technically they changed the anthem,
Yeah, it's true.
which is like fucking with the Constitution.
Oh, dude, that just boils me to no end. So, like, that's the thing. There's just so many moving parts to this. And sorry to kind of wrap this all up. Like, you know, when Trump throws things out like, hey, governor, of the 51st state, everyone understand, like, from my perspective, I'm 99% there, like, for all the reasons that I'm sure you already know. But truthfully, there's 1% of me that's kind of like, jeepers, you know what I mean? Like this is still Canada. This is still whatever. It's not the Canada that any of us know, remember, want, whatever. And would the 51st state probably be the best thing that we could ask for right now? 100%. But you know what I mean? Like for any American that's still listening 2.5+ hours into this, like ask yourself, if North Korea said, hey, why don't you guys become the second North Korean province or state or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
gets to that like deep kind of DNA level of fuck. You know what I mean? Now,
Yeah.
with all that being said, and I don't think any of this has been discussed at length, but what I think would most likely be the most logical outcome to all of this is you would have some sort of a Canadian, American, and Mexican European Union. Obviously not tied to Europe, but you know what I mean? Like you would have a union of the three countries where we all share the same fucking dollar. We all share the resources. We all like it's all for one for all. Like
Yeah.
to think that, you know, in 2025, like a country would just be assumed or swallowed by another country is probably pretty fucked to think, you know? But
Uh,
would that be the worst thing that could happen right now? I don't think at all. I think it'd be great
yeah.
because
No.
Canada's under so much fuckery. And anyway, people are probably getting tired of hearing my voice.
Oh, well, probably a good opportunity to close out this week's podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, for what it's all worth, folks, especially the Americans that are still hanging in here this many hours in. Um, from one Canadian, I know I speak for a lot of them, but like we were all very disheartened over that. I don't we those people don't speak for the rest of us. That's complete bullshit, you know? And yeah, I don't know. We'll see where it all goes, you know? Hopefully good places.
Yeah, fingers crossed, man. Um,
Mhm.
it's been too long.
Oh god, yeah. Well, and I think Bill said it best, you know, that's where these cars come in and you know, you can leave all this bullshit aside, right? Um, you know, unless you got well, whatever. There's a few hundred or couple $100,000 cars out there that everyone kind of knows and loves and they're considered the top cheddar of it all, but like for the most part we're all hanging out at the same level, you know, and that's what makes this community so special. It's like we all share the same water pump broken bolt stories and whatever else, you know. We all remember the smells and the sounds and the stereos and the case logics and shit. Like we could forget about so much of that other bullshit and just hang out and talk fox bodies, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess yeah, on that note, hey.
Yeah. Till next week.
Yeah, everybody's blood's boiling. Let's leave her there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, folks. We appreciate you. And yeah. Oh, you know what? Well, dude, maybe you can do a little bit of this in the intro. I meant to bring this up earlier. Folks, we're officially on the Facebooks. We're officially
I'll
on
throw
the
it in on the intro or I'll do something. Yeah.
yeah. We're making a valid effort. Two of the fucking dumbest
We're on
shits when it comes to
Instagram, we're
social
on
media.
Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're expanding.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in the big leagues now, and we're gonna whatever try to make a little bit more of an online community. No promises out of the gate that we're gonna be like all that interactive because we're fucking bad enough on our own shit. But nonetheless, whatever. This thing's always been about the cars and the people from the start. So um, jump over and check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And it's it sounds right, but we're missing an IN, I think, in there, right? Is how all this flanged up. We're rolling my 50.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are
So
rolling my
roll
5.
in my 50. Just say it real quick and it'll make sense.
Yeah. It looks like it's there, or if you say it real fast, it sounds like it's there, but it's short and
We're
sweet.
missing an IN.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll catch you next week.